Welcome in, Wednesday edition. Clay and Buck, the Florida, Wyoming, and Alaska primaries are complete, and we had some very interesting outcomes. But right off the top, as everyone knows, I'm not the kind of guy to brag or draw attention to myself. Light 'em up, Linda was wrong. I want to hear from Light 'em up as Byron Donalds soared to an easy win in the Florida gubernatorial primary. He will be the next governor of the state of Florida. I am quite confident about that. Buck has dodged all responsibility for who he voted for, adroitly, I might add. We were with Sean Hannity yesterday, and Sean Hannity, this is actually a little bit of behind the scenes. We had a great event down in West Palm Beach, the book club there. Buck has done it. I've done it. Met a lot of listeners. It was fantastic. Right beforehand, we did Sean Hannity's podcast, which will be up on video. You'll be able to see it at some point, giving you a little bit of a tease. Hannity just threw us both under the bus, and he said, hey, who do you like for the Republican side, Marco or JD? Get us on the record here. And I answered. And Buck said, I thought Clay really handled that well, and was just going to totally avoid having to try to take a side in the Marco versus JD sweepstakes, assuming that both run. But Buck has also done the same on voting. I would have voted for Byron Donalds if I lived in Florida, but I do not, and I believe Byron Donalds is going to be the next governor. That was a big outcome. Maybe the most shocking outcome of the Florida and unfortunately, I should say, the imposter trying to throw the race in Alaska, the not Republican Senator Dan Sullivan, is also, I believed, and Alaska is so complicated. Reading about the Alaska election returns is frustrating because Democrats have managed to put ranked choice voting into Alaska. And so I believe there are 4 people who advance to the race, including 2 of them named Dan Sullivan, the not good Dan Sullivan, the imposter guy who Democrats are trying to use, came in 3rd and got thousands of votes.
Decoy Dan, as we call him. Decoy
yes.
Dan.
Decoy Dan got thousands of votes. And honestly, the reason why I have put us on the spot and said that we're going to go to Alaska to help campaign for Dan S. Sullivan is because this is one of the dirtiest tricks I've seen in a long time, and they are just trying to steal somewhere around 3,000 or 4,000 votes that are accidentally cast for the wrong Dan Sullivan. And in a super tight race, it might come down to 3,000 or 4,000 votes, and Democrats are trying to cheat their way into the Senate in Alaska. I think all of you should know. Byron Donalds gets the nominee on the Republican side in the gubernatorial primary. Buck, I kind of loved this. In the Senate side race for the Democrats, a big upset, a Democrat socialist named Angie Nixon beat Alex Vindman. Alex Vindman by 12 points, 56-44. Alex Vindman outspent, I believe he spent $16 million on the primary, Buck. This guy must be utterly detestable for Florida voters. Even Democrats weren't willing to vote for him, and he was a big part of the Trump impeachment. And now, as a result, Ashley Moody is going to coast to victory on the Senate side there. No money will need to be spent in Florida at all, but Democrats in Florida have truly gone insane. They aren't even pretending. They are now the Socialist Party.
So, great night for Byron Donalds, which was expected, and we expected it here, and all the polls did too. So congrats to the nominee, and we would agree, overwhelming favorite to be the next governor of my great state of Florida, Byron Donalds. They've got, on the Senate side, you mentioned Ashley Moody. She dominated, so she's done great, and she's going to advance forward. You mentioned Angie Nixon, this left-wing socialist who is now going to be their Senate candidate, which is pretty astonishing. There was also a win by, remember, we had for the congressional race, Jim Schwartzel and Catalina Lauf. Catalina Lauf was Trump endorsed. She lost. Jim Schwartzel, congratulations. Big win for the born and raised, long-time, lifelong Florida guy there. who is, I'm sure, going to be a fantastic rep for Byron Donalds' old congressional seat, or will be Byron Donalds' old congressional seat. So those were the big takeaways in Florida. Also, the people in my mentions for months now who have been telling me that James Fishback is going to be my governor, you were incorrect. He did not break double digits in the vote. I think he was at 8 or 9%. So he got pretty thoroughly smoked, which was also not a surprise. So the Florida, a solid night all around. Basically, a great night for the GOP in Florida in terms of electability, in terms of very well-suited, well-qualified candidates. I will say Jake Collins, who we had on, Clay, he had a strong showing. He did nicely. Beaten by Byron Donalds, but acquitted himself well. I think he ended up with something like 25. I got to pull up all these numbers. I think he got 25% of the vote. But let me see. Byron got 49% of the vote. Yeah, and Collins got 25% of the vote. Fishback, actually got 10%. Okay, he did break double digits, they're saying now. But it's looking good there for all those Republicans to get through, to win, and that's fantastic. This Senate thing in Alaska, we're going to have to.
Frustrated, Buck.
We're going to rue the day a little bit here. This is because Decoy Dan is now going to be in the mix.
I like the nickname Decoy Dan, by the way. This is
Thank you.
This is good.
I think we go with it. I think we lead into this. Decoy Dan is going to be in the mix against real Senator Sullivan, and it doesn't have to be a lot of people to be confused by this. And again, people with a little bit of blurry vision, a little older in particular might be a challenge. And it's the same name minus the initial. So it's no blame here on those people. This is a dirty trick. It is a dirty trick that Democrats are doing. They are intentionally trying to disenfranchise people, in essence, by getting them to mistakenly vote for someone they're not trying to vote for, by using essentially a typographical trick. And it's gross, and it shows you who the Democrats really are. Nothing interesting, by the way, in Wyoming, really, although the Trump-endorsed superintendent there lost for the governor's race to State Senator Eric Barlow. So the big story is obviously Florida and what happened in Alaska, and the Alaska situation is going to continue to play out. And I would say, Corey Mills, sorry, I knew there was one that I was leaving out. Corey Mills defeated in his primary. Corey Mills, also a Trump-backed, Trump-endorsed candidate, who was an incumbent. So you had two Trump-endorsed candidates here in Florida lose in their primary, and in one case, it was an incumbent member of the House. So, that's just for the political geeks out there. If you want to keep note of this stuff, that's all happening. And, by the way, Clay, we're just hitting $40 trillion in debt. Just remind everybody of that. Remember, we're going to fix that. We haven't fixed it yet. We'll figure that out at some point. But I'm thinking that the biggest story will be Alaska, and then second to that, going forward, Angie Nixon. This adds to the DSA. I mean, this far left progressive wing of the Democrat Party. I'm not even sure you can really call it a wing. It's just there's a lot of them now. They're growing. At some point they have to be talked about, I think, as being major. And here's Harry Enton on the DSA candidate winning. This is CNN's data guy. Cut 17 guys, saying it's not just in the Northeast where the crazy is happening for these Democrats. Play it.
Okay, you might just say, this is just a phenomenon in the Northeast. This is part of the Acela corridor. This is just an urban phenomenon. No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Where DSA candidates won primaries for Congress, they're all Democrats. Yeah, you got 3 in New York, but you got 2 in Michigan. You got 1 in Colorado. You got 1 in Florida last night running for the Senate. And you got 1 in Pennsylvania. So this is not just a Northeast phenomenon in terms of these DSA candidates who are winning primaries.
Clay, I worry that the only thing that we might miss here, or that the GOP needs to be aware of, is that the presence of true socialist wackos on the ballot might make some of these Democrats who are playing a little bit smarter and closer to the center seem more viable. That'd be the only downside. The upside is you and I are going to have some great content to talk about here, because whether it's Al-Sayed or now Nixon, these folks are nuts.
Yeah, here's what I would say in general, and I do think there's potentially an analogy here. In 2022, the market was very favorable for Republicans, but Republicans picked a lot of further right candidates than maybe the middle of the road voter was interested in supporting. And as a result, Republicans won back the House, but did not take back the Senate. There were a lot of winnable governor races that were lost, all of those things. I do think that the anger at Trump is potentially leading the far left of the Democrat Party to ascend to success in primaries that's going to hurt them in the general election. Abdul El Sayed is a great example. They narrowly avoided Francesca Hong. But, Buck, I mean, it should be kind of shockwaves. The Florida Democrat Party is effectively dead. They spent $16 million to try to elect this Alex Vindman character, and instead the socialist won. Now, you live down in South Florida surrounded by a lot of people who live in South Florida because they fled socialism. The Democrat Party already had a bad brand in Florida. Good luck convincing a lot of middle-of-the-road people, hey, you got to back the socialists. The reason they live in America is because socialists destroyed the countries they live in.
Clay, that's an important point. Yeah, it's not going to this Nixon candidacy is not going to play well. Angie Nixon not going to play well with South Florida's Latino community. A lot of whom are Cuban and Venezuelan by background. Cuban and Venezuelan Americans. And I would just also note, Clay, the situation right now is the Democrats have a likelier shot of flipping a Senate seat in Texas than they do in Florida, in my opinion, which is really wild, even just to say it out loud. They're spending. I feel very strongly that Tallarico will end up losing, but they will be able to make something of a horse race of it, at least until the money spigot gets turned on for Paxton. But in Florida, I think Moody's in great shape. Byron Donalds, obviously, great shape. It's going to be a nice calming, soothing red wave just washing over the state of Florida in this election.
Yeah, and remember, they have 4 different congressional seats that they have redrawn that they expect to be added to the Republican team if things go well. The fact that Democrats are not going to have a good candidate on the governor or the Senate side, I would think would bode very well on the congressional side when it comes to the outcome there as well. So, again, Florida, they're not going to have to spend a lot of money. The money you don't have to spend in battleground states is better able to be allocated elsewhere to the Michigans and the Iowas potentially, and certainly the Alaskas where Democrats are playing dirty, Maine. There are a lot of places out there where money that might have otherwise had to be spent just to preserve and make sure that everything is fine in Florida, as a result, doesn't have to be spent there. But, Buck, I am so fired up about this Alaska thing. I'm surprised it's not a bigger story. It's one of the dirtiest tricks I think I've ever seen. And given how close the Senate can be, and Democrats try to talk all the time about election integrity, they are legitimately trying to steal the Alaska Senate race on a level that is diabolical even for them.
Can I tell you, Clay, I might need to remind everyone that there was a dirtier trick played over a Senate seat in Alaska not that long ago.
That's a good point.
What is that dirty trick, you might ask? And how did it affect the country? Massively, I should tell you. We will discuss that and more coming up here in a minute. Got to keep you on the edge of your seats. FBI has a report out. Look, I know that crime nationally is going into the right direction thanks to President Trump's crackdown, his initiatives on this, but there still are far too many break-ins. And property crimes, those are still really high in a lot of places. Yeah, we're seeing a huge decline in the murder rate, which I love to see. We all love to see that as Americans. But you go into a lot of places, a lot of these blue states and just places that have recurrent property crime issues, a lot of break-ins, a lot of home invasions. You need to be able to defend yourself and your property, and you need to take action now so you're prepared when the time comes. That's where Sabre comes in. Sabre's got a lot of phenomenal, non-lethal home and self-defense products for you and your family. But for most folks out there, starting with the Sabre Home Defense Launcher makes a ton of sense. You'll get this home defense launcher. You can try it out. Clay and I have both used them in the past in training. And they're so straightforward and intuitive. You can just tell they really stop the threat with either a pepper or projectile impact projectile, and they're very effective. And they have all kinds of other products at Sabre, too. Pepper sprays, alarms, door bars, things that you just need to check out for yourself. Get your home, get yourself protected. Go to saberprotect.com, S-A-B-R-E. Spelling's important there. Sabre, S-A-B-R-E, protect.com. Right now, you'll save up to 15% on select Sabre bundles. Don't wait until you wish you had protection. Go to saberprotect.com or call 844-824-SAFE. All right, welcome back into Clay and Buck. Now, we were just talking about the results yesterday. The real Dan Sullivan, please stand up. He won, or, he's going forward, and he certainly got a lot more votes than Decoy Dan. But the question, or rather the issue that we wanted to address is this the worst case of a political dirty trick? Well, if you include prosecutorial misconduct, I actually think the Ted Stevens case, Clay, is worse, and everybody should know this. You should always remember this as Democrats won election, but the rule of law and all this sort of stuff. Ted Stevens was the longest-serving Republican in Senate history at the time. Ted Stevens of Alaska. He was indicted, Clay, on 7 felony counts of failing to report gifts, according to prosecutors, some renovations on his home. They say worth a couple $100,000. He was convicted on October 27th, 2008, days before the election. But in early 2009, an FBI agent filed a whistleblower affidavit alleging that prosecutors withheld entirely exculpatory evidence. And guess what happened, folks? When they looked into it, they did. The prosecutors, the FBI agents involved, they railroaded Ted Stevens. They knew that he did not think he was doing anything wrong. I think it was he made an offer to pay for the renovations, or he told somebody that, that it was going to be reported, and it ended up not being reported. Whatever. The point is, it was exculpatory, and they would not have been able to bring the charges if this had been added in. And he lost to Begich in a super tight, I think he lost by 1 percentage point in that 2008 election, Clay. And guess what, everybody? Begich voted for the Affordable Care Act when it passed the Senate 60-39. So that 60-vote margin was why we have Obamacare. So because of a dirty trick in Alaska almost 20 years ago by Democrats, that's right, Democrat-aligned prosecutors, no shock, you now have insurance premiums that are triple what they were for worse coverage. This stuff matters. Sorry, got fired up.
So they're trying to do it again in Alaska, and we're going to talk about this, and we're going to be on top of it because it matters. This is a back-to-school week for millions of families, including my middle son, jam-packed schedules. How about a dinner hack that could help you as you're trying to keep track of all your kids and all the responsibilities? Good Ranchers. They partner with local farmers to deliver 100% American meat straight to your door. Pasture-raised, no antibiotics or added hormones, the kind of quality you can feel good about serving to the people around your table. For a limited time, you can get $50 off your first Good Ranchers order. That means you can build your own box starting as low as $129. Here's how you do it. Go to goodranchers.com/clay for $50 off anything on the site. goodranchers.com/clay, $50 off. One more time. goodranchers.com. You're going to love them /Clay. Welcome back in, Clay and Buck. We did the book club circuit in Palm Beach yesterday. We also did Sean Hannity's podcast, as I mentioned earlier. I got to give Buck credit because I called him up on stage to answer questions while I ran outside to go do Jesse Waters' show for Fox News. And Buck immediately got deluged with all sorts of questions that I told were quite interesting. And so we had an awesome time. But in general, that was crazy. I also want to say this. This show is thriving because of you guys. We've got the video version of the show, and we are designing a new Clay and Buck website where you can see the video version of the show. The video version of the show, if some of you are not going directly to YouTube, It now will be at the top of my new sports media company that launched this morning. Right now, if you go to sportandstate.com, you will see, hi, I'm waving at you, Buck is waving at you. We will have 3 straight hours of this program. You cannot miss it if you go to sportandstate.com. Maybe you don't necessarily want to go to YouTube and have to search for it. We certainly want you to click like and subscribe, but you will see us every day for 3 hours at the top of that new website that I have started that is going to continue, hopefully, to have sanity in women's sports, Buck, and in men's sports, and in just sane sports coverage, pop culture, to try to win in the larger marketplace of ideas. I've left Outkick. Fox owns that company now. It's a great spot, but we've got a new company that I'm excited about that this show is going to be a big part of. iHeart's going to be a big part of it. So put it in your roster of websites. I think you will enjoy it. sportandstate.com. And there's a bunch of cool articles that will regularly be up there. But every day at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, you can watch the video version of this program simply by putting that in at the top of your website. You can't miss us. We are right at the top. It is impossible to miss. I'm trying to design, Buck. We were just talking we're trying to rebuild the new Clay and Buck website. I want things to be as simple as they possibly can be and as easy to use as possible. And I want you guys to be able to watch us and listen to us as many different ways as easily as possible. Boom. We also want to continue to grow people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. If you got younger kids, you're gonna love it. So that is what is going on there. All right, you were talking about Alaska, and you were talking about how diabolical the outcome was with Ted Stevens. I want everybody out there listening right now to be aware of just how dastardly this plot that they have put in place is, and they really do believe that they can steal control of the Senate by having a fake guy that some of you accidentally vote for in Alaska. I know we sometimes want to play the flip the script. Can you imagine what Democrats would be doing if in a state like Georgia, if we had a candidate who had the exact same name as John Ossoff running in a competitive district, or New Hampshire or Michigan, trying to flip a Democrat seat by having a candidate that was the same name that was going to be on the ballot? It would be leading stories. You know this. MSNBC, front page New York Times, CNN, Republicans, Donald Trump tries to steal the election. They're not even talking about it. Just from a purely honest perspective, they're not even making it a story because they know Democrats have pulled a diabolical move and they want people to be confused and they don't want to draw attention to it.
Well, also tactically, the more people know about it, the less likely it is to succeed. So silence
and
on
maybe
this,
even blow up in their face because people actually see it for what it is. And if you're a middle of the road voter, you're like, man, that's just not in fair spirit at all.
They want it to feel like business as usual in Alaska. There's a Senate race, no big deal. When this becomes a national story, everyone, and look, there's not a lot of the time where Alaska is in the spotlight in this way. So the people of Alaska, I think, will certainly take note of it. And the more people that are aware of the trick, the less effective the trick will be, which is just to confuse people. And I understand it's very easy. I just went and voted. Who did I vote for?
You're being very CIA analyst on your voting. You're treating it as a state secret.
No, I voted. I don't know. I almost let it rip, but that's you know what I mean. I like to keep with my principle here. So something on my shoulder. What is that? Anyway, but Clay, I think in this case, the ability to go into a polling booth and understand everything that's going on with all these different boxes you have to fill in. When you're doing it, it actually can be it's a government form. The writing isn't as clear as it should be. It's not as big as you would want. There's a lot of, there's just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of races you don't care about in some of these things, and you don't even know who these names are. So I'm just telling you, there were thousands of people. Now, maybe some people voted for this far-left progressive guy as a gag, or they knew that Decoy Dan was who he was. He didn't get that many votes, but this is a Senate race that could come down to hundreds, truly hundreds of votes. That could happen. It happened in Minnesota with Norm Coleman against Al Franken. It could be a hundreds of vote differential. And so that's why the dirty trick, I think, for them might work so well. But I'm sorry, on the Ted Stevens thing, Clay, imagine that you are a prosecutor and you are thinking that you're going to hide evidence that is, remember, it's not just evidence, it was exculpatory. So they intentionally did not share the evidence with the defense. By the way, boss,
that is criminal.
Yes.
It is
criminal. Oh, they should have been prosecuted.
For people who don't know, prosecutors have an obligation if they are in possession of evidence that would be favorable to the defense. Prosecutors have an obligation to share that evidence with the defense. And sometimes you will see prosecutors who have that evidence that isn't shared end up being prosecuted for basically committing a crime associated with their investigation of a crime.
Yeah, official misconduct at a criminal level, and I would just say that should be a absolute. If they can prove that you using the power you have as a prosecutor or a judge for that matter intentionally wanted to send an innocent person to destroy their reputation and their career. Remember, Ted Stevens lost the Senate race. He was prosecuted on a completely targeted hit where they stacked the deck and they knew that he never should have been prosecuted. They didn't care. He lost that Senate seat, and there were prosecutors. I'm sure they were Democrats, and it's not hard to figure this stuff out. Obamacare was trying to get passed at the time. Clay, they wanted to lock him up for years. An old man. They wanted to put. Imagine you're a person who is taking a paycheck on behalf of the people of Alaska as a trusted, prosecutor and employee of the state, and you think that you want to put an innocent man away. Now, I will say, there was one of the prosecutors committed suicide. So there was an understanding that your career, is
basically over for what you did and attempted to do. And look, I have done defense work in criminal law in my legal career. Those are hard gigs. You and I have talked about this quite a lot, and I do think more people are aware of it now. No matter how upright and upstanding of a life you are leading, if a prosecutor decided that he was going to or she was going to completely examine every single thing that you have ever done in your life, they could charge you with crimes. I'm talking about think of the person in your church who is the most trustworthy person. If you gave unlimited power to a prosecutor to investigate everything that the sweetest mom, grandma at your church has ever done, that prosecutor could find something to charge her with, which is why you have said, and I think it's very well said, that oftentimes it's the process, not the punishment of being investigated.
No, the process is the punishment.
Yes. That the process is the punishment of being investigated, because you have to pay tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars in legal fees to try to protect you and your family. And I've said this before. I got audited as soon as I started doing this show. And I said when I never got audited ever in my life doing sports talk or radio. First year I do this show, boom. And it's basically, I think I ended up owing Buck $39.75 in additional taxes.
How dare you, sir? That $39 chipping right away at the $40 trillion that we're running up as a debt.
$39.75, and I paid seven figures in taxes that year. They came after me for $39.75 in back owed taxes, and I paid seven figures in that year in taxes. This is what they do.
Yes. So a few things. One is that of the legacy items that Donald Trump can already claim as his own, I think the destruction of the fake news media, specifically CNN, MSNBC, destruction of their credibility, the network news, ABC, CBS, NBC, taking them on and winning, and all of that. That is a legacy item for Trump, that he did it. He did the nation a huge service because they were just dishonest propaganda organs, and they were getting away with being Democrat operatives for decades, pretending to be journalists. But another area, Clay, is by defeating the weaponization of the rule of law against him. This had been growing. This the Ted Stevens thing makes me think about this. Democrats were just doing this over and over and over again. They did it to the Bush administration with the absolutely BS Scooter Libby prosecution after that total witch hunt investigation, which if you know anything about the case, you know it's a total witch hunt about the leak of the CIA officer. Give me a break. I was in the CIA. The whole thing was nonsense. The prosecution of Chris Christie for Bridgegate, the prosecution of Scott Walker with the abuse of John Doe laws for sexual assault survivors to basically take out all these people around Scott Walker in his political apparatus, and they couldn't tell anybody. I mean, think about that. You can't even go to the press and be like, hey, guys, they did a pre-dawn raid on my house because the prosecutors were using a law or a tool that they had that was meant to protect sexual assault victims. It was crazy what they were doing there when you're familiar with that case. That was back when Scott Walker was a big deal in Wisconsin. They tried to go after Rick Perry in Texas. I mean, Clay, when you start to stack it up, they went after completely trumped up after Bob McDonnell in Virginia. They wanted to go after his wife.
Yeah.
Federal prosecutors wanted to go after his wife.
Do you know who went after him? Do you remember? Jack Smith.
Yes.
Unanimously 9-0, the Supreme Court overturned Jack Smith. Did Democrats say, boy, this is a guy that we can't trust? No, they gave him the Trump case because they knew he would deliver even if there wasn't evidence of a crime, even if the Supreme Court might 9-0 him. He was their guy. Think about that. 9-0 in the Supreme Court is tough to pull off, Buck. It's hard to get whipped that bad.
But I mean, Clay, they were telling McDonnell that basically you take a guilty plea, we're going to put your wife in prison for corruption. His wife wasn't even in elected office, but she accepted, like a watch and like a golf trip or something. The whole thing was absolutely. My point about all this is that Donald Trump defeating that was absolutely essential because there's really nothing more toxic and tyrannical in a republic of free people than the abuse of the prosecutorial power for political ends. There's nothing that will bring about the collapse of any faith in the institutions or whatever. That the power to prosecute, this was taught to me by a friend who was a prosecutor, Clay, the power to prosecute is the power to destroy. And when that, just to prosecute, forget about, a jury of my peers will, good luck. A jury of my peers will acquit me, maybe. By the time you get there, you're probably bankrupted and ruined anywhere. Where do you go to get your reputation back, as the Reagan-era official, I believe, said. So that Trump was able to defeat 4 criminal prosecutions, all of which were bogus and total bullcrap against him, this had been building for 20 years. It really had. And I think people need to see it that way. And it's one of the biggest wins that this president had, even if a lot of people don't understand it in that context.
Flip side, some are screaming right now, we haven't done that at all to Democrats.
That's true.
Not to be the downer after your very positive recitation of all those facts, but a lot of people are sitting and saying, yeah, but will they do it again? And we have not fought fire with fire. Virtually no Democrat has been held accountable for anything.
Who put sour milk in your Cheerios this morning? Look at this.
I'm in a good mood. I launched a new media company. I'm excited, but I do also understand that while Trump has emerged victorious, we still have not seen actual consequences from so many people who did it to him.
This is why we get frustration from listeners, a lot of you, when I say something like, Fauci's not going to prison. He's not, but I understand people are frustrated because they know that he should if the law were applied fairly, and they want to see a prosecution even if it doesn't result in a prison sentence. It's a fight fire with fire mentality. I get it. It's not that we don't get it. I'm just telling you as a predictive matter, as a prediction. I don't think you're going to see Fauci. I don't think you're going to. James Comey's not going to spend a day in a prison cell. This is just the way it's going to happen. All right. Hopefully I'm wrong. When bad weather rolls through your area, the kind that knocks out the power, what's one of the first things to fail? It's likely cell phone service. In critical moments, cell towers can get overloaded with everyone using their cell phones, leaving you with no service or that SOS image on your phone. That's why you want to own a pair of Rapid Radios. These are emergency communication devices built for the moments that matter most. Rapid Radios work over nationwide LTE networks. They give you instant push-to-talk communications. You can check in with the entire family while you contend with your power outages and all else that comes your way. Rapid Radios are durable, weatherproof, have a long battery life, clear audio, and dependable range. Whether coordinating with neighbors, checking in on family, friends, and colleagues that are states away, that instant connection is incredible. So important. And they're turnkey right out of the box. Rapid Radio is the new standard in emergency and operational readiness. For a limited time, go to rapidradios.com. You'll get up to 60% off and free shipping from Michigan. Add code BUCK for an extra 5% off. Rapidradios.com, code BUCK. Rapidradios.com, code BUCK.
Welcome in, Clay and Buck. We are having a great time hanging out with all of you as we roll into the second hour of the program. Want to tell you that in addition to Florida and Wyoming, which went fairly well across the board for the red team, Alaska remains a major battleground because of the dirty, sordid tricks of the Democrat Party trying to confuse people by putting a guy with the exact same name on the ballot. But also there was, and I do think this may slide a bit under the radar, in the wake of Lindsey Graham's death, there was an immediate election that was put in place in South Carolina. Lindsey Graham had already won the Republican nomination and was going to win another 6-year term in the Senate to represent South Carolina. After his death, his sister was appointed, and she is serving out the remainder of his term, which would go until around, we expect, until around January. And then there will be a new senator from South Carolina sworn in. There now is a runoff that is underway in South Carolina, and they had a debate last night. It is Darlene Graham against Ralph Norman. That is the final two contenders for this Senate seat. And last night, frankly, Darlene Graham got asked a question about foreign affairs, which was Lindsey Graham's specialty, and this is what that sounded like. Listen.
Senator, are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military. My brother was in the Air Force for 33 years, so I will do everything I can to support the military. My dad was in the Army. I'm not a polished politician up here. National security is not my thing, not my area of expertise, but I do support the military.
Okay, Buck. This, to me, we went after AOC for her answer on Taiwan when she was at an international affairs conference in Germany, if I remember correctly. This is a disqualifying answer, in my opinion. You're right now the sitting senator. So, Buck, you went to Taiwan. If you're going to raise your hand and say, I want to be a senator, you have to know about basic things relating to Taiwan. I'm sorry. This is an indefensible answer. She's not even running to be senator. She is a senator from South Carolina right now. If I had this job, I would, you would too. We would read every briefing book on the planet. You have to represent the whole state of South Carolina. Your brother was a foreign policy expert, and you got this gig because you happen to be his sister, and you know that you're going to have a debate, and you can't even familiarize yourself with the number one foreign policy topic? Buck, it's rare that I get super fired up about a Republican answer in a debate. This is disqualifying, in my opinion, and I'm sure Darlene Graham is a nice person, and I'm not trying to attack her, but the job is to know about Taiwan and the South China Sea. You traveled there. I mean, when you hear this, what do you think?
So I would start with, we never want to be unkind. And I try to now.
That's why I said I'm sure she's very nice.
I know. I'm just back. I'm walking backwards into this answer because I think in some ways what I'm going to say might be even more harsh than what you said. I'm sure she's a lovely person. I don't know her. It's nice that she's serving her country in this role, but being a senator is not being a member of the PTA. Okay, you could be voting, you would think, on treaties between countries. You could be on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, perhaps. You could have to vote on whether this country goes to war. And the problem with the answer, Clay, isn't that she gave a bad answer. It's that anybody who listens to this show could give a good enough answer. It wasn't that she gave a poor answer. It was that she had no answer, which makes, and just admitted freely, she has no answer, which makes you wonder. And I asked this question not to be mean. Could she find Taiwan on a map with the names removed? I think the answer is 99%. No, she could not. Do you want a person who could not find Taiwan on a map, on an actual map? Honestly, Clay, could she find China on a map? Like, you start to go down this road, and I do not mean to be unkind. I'm sure she's a lovely woman, and she lost her brother, who was a patriot. But this is a United States Senate seat. Does it matter or does it not matter, everybody? Can we just pick people at random off the street to be nice? Does it matter or does it not matter? I understand President Trump has endorsed her. I suppose at some level it's because, MAGA will tell her how to vote, and so she shall just... Well, then we don't have direct democracy. We actually have representatives. We have people that we put in positions to get information that the general public doesn't have access to, I might add, like in the Senate. Classified information. They are empowered to make decisions in the name of the people of South Carolina, but in the name of the American people more broadly. And there need to be some standards. And I understand in the Trump era, we've all gotten very comfortable with a lot of nepotism and a sense of a dynastic approval of things. I do think that there should be some limits. That's all. And I don't know this lady. I have no ill will toward her. I'm sure she's a lovely person, and it's sad that her brother, who was a great patriot and a great American, passed away recently. And I do think that her stepping in, Clay, for the remainder of the term, it's a tradition. I'm okay with that. She has now chosen to. I don't think we would sit here if she just gave this answer at some press conference or something while she's sitting and be like, look, guys, she's finishing out. She might have like one vote or two she votes with the Republicans, not a big deal. She wants a 6-year term in the United States Senate. And for anybody who's going to tell me, oh, but it doesn't matter. Oh, she's not a foreign policy expert. Is there any level of knowledge that should be required for a person to get your vote as a United States Senator to a person who would say that? Is there any baseline level of knowledge? I don't think this is being like intellectually snobbish or being a mean nerd or anything like that at all. If you have a passing familiarity with reading the newspaper, you can answer this question. And I bear her no ill will. She's been put in this position. I think she's a lovely. I don't want anyone writing in, you're being mean to. I'm not being mean to Darlene. I'm sure she's a great human being. But why go to a debate if you can't answer a question like this? Why put yourself in that position?
It is the most foundational foreign policy question that you could be asked. She knows that she is going to a debate. To me, it's disrespectful of voters to not do basic research to be able to tell them what you think of questions that are this significant. And again, she may very well be a very nice person. She may be a great mom. That doesn't mean she deserves to be one of 100 senators. There's only 53 Republicans who represent the entire nation. You should have to have at least, at the bare minimum, the average intelligence on political issues as these listeners right now across the country. What do you think? 95% of our listeners could answer that question better than Darlene Graham did.
No, 100%.
Maybe higher.
100%.
Maybe 100%.
Every single one of the people listening to this right now, if you listen to our show, you've heard us talk about Taiwan, China, but also it just shows a baseline level. Listening to this show, I'm just going to say it, shows a baseline, at least, many cases, people are political nerds or obsessed with national security, and they love this show because we go into details on some of that stuff, on top of talking about Subarus and the WNBA and everything else. But no, 100% of this audience can answer the question better than that, because if you listen to this show, you have intellectual curiosity and you know what's going on in the world. If you cannot tell me anything about China and Taiwan, anything whatsoever, and you want to be United States Senator, that there's going to be a base. Trump would never give an answer like this, just to be clear, on anything, ever. And Trump would never just be like, yeah, I don't know anything about that thing that's important. So, Trump sometimes, he at least shows you the instincts that he approaches something with, which for a lot of people is enough. You can't just say, I vote present on whether we'd go to war to defend Taiwan against China. You can't do that.
She's a current sitting senator. The bare minimum that you can do is basic research on the job that you have right now. She's making nearly roughly $200,000 a year to represent the people of South Carolina right now. And to your point, I think you could give a little bit more grace, although I still think it's frankly indefensible, even as a sitting senator, to have this answer. But she is arguing, I deserve to represent the people of South Carolina for the next 6 years. And she's not willing to do the bare minimum of preparation before she goes into a debate. By the way, I think this is also an indictment of everybody advising her. What debate prep did they do with her? I get that it's overwhelming. You're not used to talking for a living. You and I talk for a living. Guess what? Talking for a living in front of a crowd is a big part of being a politician, so you better get better at it. Who advised her? Usually you have people who will set you down and walk through debate prep with you. Buck, you and I could have given her 20 questions that she's going to get asked. Here's a debate binder. You could go on Grok or ChatGPT.
You and I are approaching this from a different clay. It's not that she doesn't do debate prep. It's that she doesn't read the newspaper.
Well,
that's a different thing.
But
that's a new level.
But she has this job. It's an insult to the people of South Carolina, to me, to go on the stage and not have done the bare minimum of research for the questions you're going to get asked. But yes, this is a sign that she pays no attention to politics at all for the last 20 years.
She wasn't asked a question about what's going on in Myanmar or something. I mean, there's some level of obscurity. If she had gotten asked,
hey, what do you think about Moldovan elections coming up in November? I would be like, well, that's really an unfair
question. Nobody
would
even really, but even that, I think you kind of come up with something like, well, I think we stand with democracy and our allies. There's an answer that everybody should be able to give. But this matters because there's a primary going on right now, and she has been endorsed by President Trump. And in this primary, Darlene Graham is up against Ralph Norman. And they're both appearing on this ballot. August 25th is the actual primary election day, but early voting is underway. Let's open this up. We got a lot of listeners in South Carolina. If you feel differently or you feel the same, weigh in on this one. And again, I think we try to be very careful. It's not about being mean. It's not about bashing Darlene Graham at all as a person or anything else. Sure, I truly mean this. We're not saying this in a supercilious way. Probably a lovely person. I haven't met her. I don't know her, but I'm sure she's a lovely person, and she means well for her state, for her country. And Lindsey I didn't always agree with Lindsey Graham, but he was a patriot, and he did serve, and he did care about America a whole heck of a lot. So respect for all of that. I just don't think that this kind of a moment is, look, people could say, oh, it was just a moment. Yeah, but so was Biden saying that he defeated Medicare, remember? But that moment was enough. We all saw it. This was a very tough moment, and Trump has already endorsed her, so I'm sure he's not going to back off of that. But South Carolina or anybody else you want to weigh in, but particularly we'll put to the front of the line here on the calls, the talkbacks, anyone in South Carolina, because you're voting on this. This is an active political decision.
Yes.
We're not trying to be, we're not digging up the past or taking cheap shots or anything like that. But we're deciding who's going to represent, because whoever wins the GOP primary is going to be the senator. So we're deciding who's going to have this Senate seat right now, or rather you who live in South Carolina are deciding it. All right, I'm going to switch gears here for a second while we take the calls on this. Something very special happens in the offices of OBGYNs. Pregnant mothers meet their child for the first time via ultrasound. To see your child in its infancy, developing their form and hearing the heartbeat in real time, it's such a precious moment. Same thing also happens at preborn clinics nationwide every day. Pregnant moms, many of them with unplanned pregnancies, meet their unborn baby as well. It's part of their journey for deciding whether they're going to give life or choose abortion for their baby. Preborn is on the front lines trying to save as many of these babies as possible because they know that ultrasound experience, plus all the care and support and love that they give these mothers who walk into the clinics, means that more than 80% of the time, the baby is given life. This past year, they saved the lives of more than 80,000 unborn children. When a woman walks into one of Preborn's clinics, she's welcomed with open arms. When she chooses life, Preborn continues walking with her for up to 2 years, providing maternity clothes, diapers, counseling, and so much more. There are hundreds of thousands of mothers to be in this situation today. If you have the ability to donate, your $28 gift can pay for an ultrasound experience, which so often changes the mind of that pregnant mother. Using your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby, or visit preborn.com/buck, preborn.com/BUCK. All gifts are tax deductible. Preborn is a 5-star rated charity sponsored by Preborn.
Welcome back in. You guys may have overloaded Sport and State. After I bragged about the fact that you could see us on video there, you right now cannot see us on video there. So positive, you went to the website. Negative, we are still dealing with massive inflows. There's always things, as those of you who have built new websites know, front pages are great. There's something that's tweaked a couple of pages back. We will be there every day from noon to 3 Eastern, and you will be able to watch us. And Brian in Orlando, Florida, can allow the car to drive while he watches us because he has a Tesla. Brian, what you got for us?
Clay, I tell you what, you guys are amazing. I've never disagreed with you ever in my life. I can't say that about another person. Buck maybe once, but I've done 30,000 miles since January in my Model 3 Tesla, all self-driving. I'm a pharmacist. We've got a medical delivery thing here. The thing is the most amazing thing. There's so many things. All I can say is, if you're out there and you're spending $500 or $600 a month, or over $1,000 for a lot of couples, guess what? My bill for over $100 a day, 100 miles a day, I'm doing, Clay, and it's $40 a month. My first bill, I can't believe my whole house in Orlando.
So you're saying your electric bill for Tesla versus getting gas for a car?
It's zero. It's a free car. It's
right.
$40 a month for 3,000 miles.
Thank you for the call. You are preaching to the choir. We were last night at dinner, Buck. We were having conversations, and one of the guys came up talking about how much. It was Sean Hannity was talking about how much he loves his Tesla.
One of the guys. This guy is like the most famous conservative commentator of his generation. What's his name again? Yeah.
We talked to so many people last night. I was trying to remember who was bragging on Tesla with me and it was Sean Hannity talking about how he loves fast cars and everything else, but he bought a Tesla and he couldn't stop talking about how much he loves it and how fast it is. And I will say, Buck, if you are a muscle car guy out there, the Tesla will smoke you. A Tesla. It goes to 60 miles an hour faster than almost any car out there on the planet.
Also, Hannity said that he could beat you in an MMA fight and that his daughter would smoke me in tennis. We got roughed up by Sean yesterday. He was not holding back.
That is accurate.
He was going for it. No, by his daughter, I'm sure. If she was a D1 female, she would kick my ass. But that's
Michigan
okay.
Wolverine, his daughter, a great tennis player, and then his son played at Wake Forest. Both of them were D1 tennis players, super talented athletes. Look, I want to tell you, if you have been dealing with property damage at all, and you are listening to us right now, and you've been frustrated at how your insurance has responded, you need to go to claytravislaw.com. No matter what type of property insurance you have, increasingly insurance companies are trying to avoid paying out what they owe. And before you accept checks, when you have extensive damage, you need to make sure that you're represented by somebody who can advocate for the best of your case. And that is what we do at claytravislaw.com. All 50 states, the best lawyers that you can imagine to fight for you. It doesn't cost anything. If you have property damage, go to...
All right, welcome back in here to Clay and Buck. Man, the show is flying by today, and we're going to take more of your calls and talkbacks and all the rest of it. Big day in Florida yesterday, or the last 24 hours. Byron Donalds got the win for the primary for the governor's seat, and we've also got Ashley Moody looking good for the Senate seat that is open here, and we had some very interesting races playing out. Wanted to get some of your talkbacks. You know what, Clay? I'm just going to go right to this one. Where did he go? He was upset. I want the one who was upset with us, who says, you guys, oh yes, D podcast listener Chris in Michigan. Okay, Chris, here you go. Play it.
Clay and Buck, you guys can't wait to find a reason to criticize a Republican. Do you do the same for the Democrats? Ridiculous on how you jumped on Graham's sister for her non-answer. Not the best answer, but you guys, you say we should disqualify her and vote for the Democrat? Idiotic.
Okay, Chris. First of all, just a point of fact, there's a Republican primary going on. So there's
Tuesday.
Another
In one
Tuesday.
week.
In 1 week, there is another Republican who has an A+ rating from like Right to Life and the NRA. And I mean, there's another Republican running who has been doing this thing known as politics and reading the newspaper occasionally for a long time. Number two, there are criticisms that we will take on hand here. Whether we're too favorable to one person in politics or too critical of another, the notion that we do not lambaste Democrats, fillet them like fish verbally on this show for hours a day is the craziest thing I've ever heard, Chris. Chris, we love that you listen. We love you for listening. All we do is mock the idiocy of Democrats. How can you think that we don't do that, Chris? My head is actually exploding. How is this? Because there's other people that are calling him the same thing. Why don't you guys ever criticize Democrats? I have special voices for Democrats. I need to take a time out.
All right, while Buck calms down. There is a primary. If you are not following this, as Chris is clearly not following this, you have a choice if you're a Republican in South Carolina. By the way, producer Greg just cleared up the phone lines. So 800-282-2882. Only South Carolinians can weigh in. While we wait for South Carolinians to weigh in on the debate that happened, I believe, last night, 1 week out, the 25th, Ralph Norman is a Republican. Darlene Graham is a Republican. One of them is going to win the primary on Tuesday. The winner of that primary will then run against a Democrat in November and will win. So you are picking your senator for the next 6 years on Tuesday in South Carolina, okay? I don't know very much about Ralph Norman. I do know that when AOC gave this answer last year, we obliterated her on this program, okay? AOC was asked basically the same exact question. I'm going to play them side by side. I want you guys to listen to it. Take off your rose-colored glasses and think to yourself, which one of these answers was better? Crazily, AOC got an F. I think she was better than Darlene Graham, but I can't recall it perfectly. Here was AOC. I'm going to play it, and then I'll play Darlene Graham. Listen to AOC asked about Taiwan.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very longstanding policy of the United States, and I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
Okay, that's AOC. Well, Buck, that's a bad answer.
Very bad answer.
But she got to an answer eventually at the end. Okay, she was a sitting congresswoman attending a foreign policy conference. You can go back and listen. We filleted her for this.
Of course, but can I also say, I think that what was really the problem with that answer, she was verbally stalling. You and I do radio. We know this from when you're trying to find a way to get yourself back to, especially if you've prepped on something or if you've prepared in advance to say something. We just go extemporaneously all the time here on the show. But if I was going to be in a debate, I'm sure I'd dive into certain issues and have in my head at least a structure of how to answer them. She was stalling. She was saying words while trying to reach into her memory for what is she supposed to say. That's what that's. So it's a very bad. And when she got there, it still wasn't good. That's the thing. It's not like she kicked it into another gear, but that's a bad answer. It is not I have no idea what is going on in the world answer. And by the way, we have people calling in on this. Can I just add?
Yeah, but let's play Darlene Graham one more time in case.
Oh, you want to go head to head?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's AOC. Okay. Now you can compare. Be fair. That was AOC really bad. Here is Darlene Graham last night.
Senator, are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military. My brother was in the Air Force for 33 years, so I will do everything I can to support the military. My dad was in the Army. I'm not a polished politician up here. National security is not my thing, not my area of expertise, but I do support the military.
Okay.
She's not running to be librarian at the local high school, everybody. She wants to be in the United States Senate.
One of the 100 most important elected officials in the United States Capitol. That's what a senator is. One of the 100 in a country of 350 million people. Your judgment is trusted more than almost anyone else. And by the way, Buck, just to be a little bit funny here, never a good sign when you ask to have the question repeated. It's like when you're in a spelling bee and you're like, can you use that in a sentence? Can you tell me the etymology? Like, you're definitely stalling for time when you say, hey, can you repeat the question? We have right now completely loaded lines. Let me let producer Greg get all these queued up. I only want South Carolina callers because they are the ones that are going to be voting. A lot of people are going to have opinions. I get it. We all do. But I want to hear from South Carolinians, and you can break down yourself. We played AOC's answer for which she was condemned, attacked, ridiculed, even by left-wing media because it was so bad that they couldn't even ignore it.
So, and that answer, by the way, was head and shoulders above the one that Darlene Graham gave.
Correct.
Just to be objective. Just to be objective. And we've said that AOC is stupid. I think she's politically very dangerous and very powerful, but she's, and stupid is honestly, she's more ignorant than she is stupid. She has a level of cunning, and she certainly is good on social media, and she can be charming. She has her things. Darlene Graham, I'm sure, is a lovely person and has some of those qualities and everything else. Let's take Stuart in Greenville, South Carolina. He wants to weigh in on this one. South Carolinian, what have you got for us? Stuart in Greenville, going once. Stuart in Greenville, going. You got us, buddy? Are you there? Oh, okay. Brian in Orlando.
Your screen is frozen, I think. Mike in Charleston, South Carolina. Mike, are you there? We're trying to hit one out of three here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Mike. Fire away. Okay. Put them on pause. Producer Greg, get them queued up. Let them understand that when we say their name, they should start talking. A little bit of an advice from me in general. I've been giving this for a long time. If for some reason someone's name is different than the name you have given, and you are waiting on hold as a caller, there is no harm whatsoever in you starting to talk. If you're talking and you're not talking back to us, it's not a big deal. If we are talking to you and you do not talk back to us, then millions of people are waiting to hear what you have to say and you aren't saying anything. So general advice for people who are on hold, when I say a name, start talking. It might be you. It's possible that the name is a little bit different. It's possible that your hometown is different than actually you have given. That happens when people are typing up. But just start talking. You never go wrong if you talk on radio. Good life lesson. And
Mike
I want
in
to tell
South
you,
Carolina claims to be ready now. Come on, Mike. Step up, buddy.
Thanks for the coaching. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Listen, I don't disagree with the points that you made. They're valid. But when Lindsey was a freshman, he didn't know anything about a lot of the issues. That gal has had to put up with a whole lot of stuff in the last month and a half.
So here's where I'm going to disagree with
let
you,
him
Mike.
finish. Let him finish.
I do think Lindsey
Mike.
Graham has always been very astute when it came to foreign policy issues. And certainly, even when he was a freshman in the Senate, he was a prosecutor in the House in the impeachment trials. This guy was an astute political figure, whether you agreed with him or disagreed. He represented South Carolina well for generations. When he was a first-year senator, he knew what his answer would have been on Taiwan.
She will as well. She's got Lindsey's entire staff. They're like a family. And she
okay, so why couldn't she answer this question in the debate? She's a senator right now.
But I don't think that I understand. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Clay. But my point is this. To be well-schooled in all of this and at a matter of a month and a half is kind of a stretch.
Okay, so Mike, I get where you're going, and I appreciate it. Hold on a second. This isn't a family heirloom. Like, this isn't a painting that should pass from one person to another. It's a United States Senate seat. Why do you think it's one thing that she's in the seat, she was appointed, you had the untimely death of Senator Graham, may he rest in peace. This is about the next 6 years for your state, one of two senators. Why is she the best possible human being who wants the job for that job?
Because she's got Lindsey's entire staff who's been together for years and can advise her and get her up to speed on all of the issues that Lindsey expounded.
I understand that, Mike, but with all due respect, the staff exists to put your policy into place. I just started a new sports media company. It's my company. I'm responsible for everything. If I said my staff handles everything and I couldn't answer a single question, there would be no reason whatsoever why I should be the CEO of the company. The decider is the senator. So the staff works for her. If they are working for her and they prepared her for that Senate debate answer, she should fire them all because they failed her. So, again, there are only 100 people in the United States Senate in the whole country. Are you telling me she's the best representative for South Carolina for the next 6 years? The only qualification she has is she is Lindsey Graham's sister. That's it.
James in Greenwood, South Carolina, wants to answer your question. James, you're up next. What have you got for us?
Hey, Buck. I do agree that she should have had better prep, but I think what most people want is someone's got a good head on their shoulders and is kind of rational, as opposed to her voting for her over Ralph. I don't want another career politician in. I think that this anti-incumbent attitude is on fire, and I love it, because we want somebody in there that's going to think. Even if she doesn't have all the answers now, I just want somebody that has a good head on her shoulders, and I'll probably be voting for her over Ralph.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know anything. Look, I know nothing about Ralph Norman. Nothing. I don't know if he's the best choice for South Carolina either. I'm not saying that he is. This is not my expertise. I would not vote for anyone who could not tell you what they would do on the most basic level if Taiwan was invaded. Or, Buck, she didn't even get asked that directly, just how significant of an issue is this? She didn't even get the hypothetical of what would you tell the president if he called you 10 minutes after we had just had an invasion, because he would have called Lindsey Graham.
I mean, so Ralph is a career politician, just to be clear, and I'm not on the Ralph Norman for president bandwagon here. I didn't even know about the guy until this all came up. But Clay, he grew a small construction business his father had into one of the biggest real estate developers in South Carolina. So he's a private sector guy for his career. Was very successful, and now has been serving in the House of Representatives. So, yeah, I mean, he's not a career politician. Is my point. He's actually a career real estate developer. He's only been in the Congress since, I'm trying to find this as we're going in real time here. When did he first get in?
Let me
guys?
read, Buck. We'll come back.
2017. So,
we'll take your call. South Carolinians are loading the lines. I want to tell you about the IFCJ and the incredible difference they can make in Israel. I saw it for myself when I traveled to the Holy Land, the work that they are doing. This is a New Jersey-based corporation that has existed for over 40 years. They build bomb shelters. They help to feed the impoverished. They help to take care of people in a war-torn country, and so many of you have helped them, and we are honored to be a part of their network as well. Here's how you can help out. You can go check out today the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, and you can pray for the safety of Jewish people, for peace in Israel, for an end to anti-Semitism. Stand with Israel in prayer today by visiting prayifcj.org. That's prayifcj.org. Welcome back in. Hour number 3, Wednesday edition, Clay and Buck. It is back up and running. The live stream. Make sure that you go click like and subscribe. You can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on clayandbuck.com, and you can now watch it on sportandstate.com, all 3 hours on video. We love all of you listening on the 550 plus AM, FM stations across the nation, as well as those of you on satellite radio, podcast, however you are consuming this program. We thank you for doing so. As we finished the last hour, we were discussing not only has Byron Donalds won easily in Florida, and he will be the next governor from Florida, we had Angie Nixon, a Democrat socialist, beat Alex Vindman, despite the fact that Vindman had spent over $16 million. The Democrat socialist in Florida won by 12 points, 56 to 44%. We have a Alaska situation that we are going to cover extensively on this program, where Democrats are trying to steal a Republican Senate seat by running somebody with the same name and a different middle initial. I guess, Buck, they could have got the guy to change his name so that he had the exact same middle initial as well. But that because of a 4-way running situation going on in Alaska. We had a new senator picked in Wyoming. Lots of different activity going on last night in Florida, Wyoming, and in Alaska. Also last night, we had a South Carolina debate to refresh. This is a Republican debate. On Tuesday, there will be a decision made. Darlene Graham, the sister of Lindsey Graham, or Ralph Norman, that is the choice on the Republican primary side for whom will get a 6-year Senate term, because the Republicans are going to win the statewide race in South Carolina. Last night did not go well for Darlene Graham. She was asked about the situation in the South China Sea as it pertains to Taiwan. She did not have an answer at all, said she was not basically prepared to have an answer there. She also said that 50 million people live in South Carolina. That clip is also going mega viral and playing and ricocheting all over the place. Listen.
50 million people in South Carolina.
Well, I thought we would play a longer version of the clip than we did. But she was saying that 50 million people lived in South Carolina, and half of them had financial challenges that they were dealing with. The population in South Carolina, around 5 million. Kind of a big deal. You would think when you say 50 million, a light bulb might go off in your head as you recognize that that's more people than live in California, Texas, Florida, more people than live in all of Canada. 50 million people would be a pretty crowded South Carolina if that were the case. Maybe we can grab the longer form version of that, but that clip is going viral. To be fair, maybe she just misspoke. She did not correct it. That's kind of a big whiff. It makes me think, Buck, that she might have read some sort of briefing material and thought 5 million was 50 million, which also does not speak well. Again, she has not had a job where she had to speak publicly and analyze, frankly, complicated issues. A lot of people from South Carolina weighing in. I'm going to go just in order of the amount of time that they have been waiting, not in order of what their take is. And that means we start with Brad in Columbia, South Carolina. Brad, what's your take?
Hey, Clay and Buck. Rush has some big shoes to fill, but y'all doing a pretty good job at filling them.
Thank you.
I have to disagree with some of these guys. This is not the local librarian. This is not a business. Lindsey Graham was a good senator, but if we look back at history, he wasn't the kindest to some of our conservative causes. So the fact that we're just going to hand this to his sister just because it's his sister kind of boils my blood a little bit. I mean, Ralph Norman doesn't have to go to Washington to make money, to become rich. He's already fairly wealthy. And I don't see him staying up there for a career. I mean, you know, let's face it, Lindsey Graham was a career politician, but I'm assuming some of these folks that had that argument would probably have voted for him again instead of maybe a newer Republican running in the primary.
Lynn, thank you for the call, Brad. Lindsey Graham won comfortably the nomination. He was going to be senator for 6 more years. Doesn't mean everybody agrees with what Lindsey Graham advocated for. But, Buck, Lindsey Graham would have had a good answer, even if you didn't agree with him, with every single question that he was asked in a South Carolina primary.
Well, he would have been like, bomb him, and bomb him again, and keep bombing him, and make sure there are more bombs dropped on him. I know what Lindsey would have said. So,
and for people out there who say this doesn't matter, I would argue there is a very real reason that Brett Kavanaugh is a Supreme Court justice, because Lindsey Graham cut through the noise during that sham attack proceeding on Brett Kavanaugh. I thought it was his finest moments in the Senate. He may be Brett Kavanaugh in the Senate because of what Lindsey said that day. Could Darlene Graham
I'm glad you reminded
that?
us of that. I think, in my mind, no question that was Lindsey Graham's finest moment in the United States Senate, because it was about more than being a senator. It was about being a decent and brave human being in that moment. So hats off to Lindsey for that.
Unscripted. So much of this stuff is BS. People read off prompters. They're reading what somebody else wrote. That was an unscripted moment of pure honesty that connected with the American public, and I think largely propelled Brett Kavanaugh, a bunch of those people who had weak knees and weren't otherwise going to have the spine to stand up for Brett Kavanaugh. Lindsey Graham did it, and he helped to give them a little bit of steel in their spine through his.
I do not believe, and some of this is going to come up, I'm sure, in the future in other ways. I do not like political dynasties as a concept. I do not like monarchy. That's why I don't like the whole, even though they don't have power, even the British monarchy annoys me, because none of these people have earned their importance. They were born into some level of importance. I'm not a fan of nepotism. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying it isn't a powerful force in a lot of different ways. And you know, people say, oh, what about George W. Bush? Yeah, I don't think that's a big check mark in favor of nepotism, everybody. I hate to be the bearer of that news, but I think that your last name should not, in fact, be the primary characteristic that you have for getting massive political power in the case of a president, or even being a United States senator. And you look at the way they're gaming this with the Decoy Dan up in Alaska. That's just playing a different name game. But there should be more to it than just somebody's last name. I firmly believe that. I think that's a principle. I think it's a defensible principle. I think it's one that some of us are going to have to defend in conservative circles in the years ahead. Because, and by the way, that doesn't mean if somebody's great and they're fantastic and they happen to have the name that also brings them prominence, well, you can judge people on their merits, of course. But I'm waiting to hear, oh, she'll learn. You're really not supposed to learn the basics after you become a senator for 6 years about things that affect your role as a senator. No one's saying, I wish she had a better jump shot. Like, this is about stuff you're supposed to know. We've got others. Let's get to those callers. I don't want to filibuster.
I'm going to continue to go in the order in which they have been waiting. Next up is Charlie in Charleston.
Hey, Clay. Hey, Buck. I like your take, and I agree with you. I don't think she's ready for the job of senator. I think, the China-U.S. relations is a top 5 foreign policy issue of great concern, and I think anybody that's seeking this job should be ready with an answer for that question. I disagree with one of the former callers who said that she could rely on her staff. I mean, she would be the leader of that staff. I mean, that's the very reason we criticized Biden, that he was being directed by his handlers.
That's absolutely correct, by the way. That's a great point, and I was going to say that we didn't like the weekend at Bernie's thing with Biden. I don't think we would like that puppeteering going on for Darlene Graham either.
Amen, Charlie. It's a great point. And I would argue that's truly troubling, because if you're not well-versed enough to have a basic answer yourself, then you're going to go in whatever direction your staff points you. We're not doing anything to elect the staff. It's a great point. Just like Biden being sort of the Trojan horse candidate, the weekend at Bernie's candidate, do Republicans want to pick somebody who's not able to make his or her own decisions? Thank you, Charlie. Next up on the wait is Rusty in Columbia, South Carolina.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and I just wanted to make the observation that anybody that watched that debate and who happened to have been undecided would have to be a borderline idiot not to vote for Ralph Norman. Ralph acquitted himself well, and I have to say, I mean, Lindsey Graham was a friend of mine, and I met his sister a number of times, but she just didn't do well. And unlike what I think Clay was that said you're electing a senator for 6 years, we could have a contest here if somebody as weak as Darlene ended up with that nomination.
Yeah, meaning it wouldn't necessarily just be a lock for Republicans. Look, I think that it's also at some level. Thank you, sir. Excellent call.
Let me ask him, is he still there? Because he said he knows him personally. I'm curious because as a Southerner, sometimes people are worried about being unkind. And obviously, Lindsey Graham passed. You knew Lindsey Graham. What would you say to people who say, hey, her brother just died, you guys are being, including me and Buck and maybe others, you guys are being uncharitable to her. You know them both. What would you say?
Well, I don't think charity and being nice to somebody and sympathizing with them over the death of a close relative, I don't think that necessarily merits election to the United States Senate. On the contrary, come to grips with your loss and move on. I don't think you're
Thank you very much. I'm also
just because you had a death in the family.
Thank you.
I completely. I don't know. I echo. I will piggyback off of this caller. I echo this caller's sentiment. This caller, A+ high five, 5-star review on Google. Would review this caller to a friend. I would also say this about it, Clay. I criticize this, and so I try to be consistent about these things. Biden was very quick to use personal tragedy, always in a really. I'm not saying Darlene Graham is exploiting anything, to be clear. But Biden did exploit personal tragedy, and it was real tragedy, for political gain. He absolutely did. Got sworn in the in the hospital room. I mean, it was very clear what the games that he was playing for his own personal gain. And I think that's wrong because I think it's irrelevant to the office, right? Whether or not you'd be good at the job. The fact that I'm not saying she's exploiting Lindsey Graham's death, but the fact that Lindsey Graham died, to me, has nothing to do with whether she is a good, and being sympathetic and kind about that has nothing to do with whether she would herself be a good senator for 6 years. I'm not even talking about the interim thing, which quite honestly, you could raise issues about that. I've kind of said okay on the interim senator thing because it is quick and, there's some legacy and some sense of it. But I don't know, maybe actually, Clay, people might argue caving on that is the root of the whole problem.
I would also, I'm going to take one more call before we go to break. I would also point out, Buck, on that front, that what would have happened if Lindsey Graham hadn't died, had just decided, you know what, I need to step down, and he wanted Darlene to be his replacement? Would South Carolinians have gone along with that? I don't think they would have. I don't think if Lindsey Graham had said, you know what, I'm 71, I don't think I have the fire in my belly to do this job anymore. I'm going to step down. I want all of you to go vote for Darlene. I actually don't think that would have translated into the primary at all. If he himself had said, go vote for my sister, I think a lot of people would have said, record scratch moment. What?
A Senate seat does not belong to anyone except for the people of the state who get to decide who they will confer it to every 6 years. It does not. It is not a family heirloom, okay? This is not a vintage Rolex that you get to give to father to son, or in this case, to sister. I don't understand. To me, this is very straightforward. I don't know. And it'd be one thing if she seemed even vaguely qualified on her own for the job. I will note, nobody has made that case to us yet. People have said she is nice and Lindsey's staff will be there for her. Is she qualified for the job? Is anyone qualified to be a senator?
We'll take more of your calls when we come back in a second here. Buck, you got us as we go to break.
I've got two questions for you, both related to the cell phone on your hand. One, is your current wireless provider giving you 5-star service? Two, are you paying more than $34.99 a month for unlimited data? If you think you're paying too much for subpar service, then do what I did. Switch to Pure Talk. In an industry survey, Pure Talk was the only wireless company to receive 5 stars in every category: coverage, support, value, and data. And now, for just a few more weeks, Pure Talk is offering unlimited data for just $15 a month for your first 3 months. After that, get unlimited data for as low as $34.99 a month with no contract. Just dial pound 250, say our names, Clay and Buck, and Pure Talk's 5-star U.S. customer service team will switch you in minutes. There's a better wireless choice out there at just $15 a month for your first 3 months. Now is a great time to choose Pure Talk. That's my cell phone, by the way. I've been using Pure Talk. They have been my primary cell phone carrier personally for 5 years now. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck. Switch to Pure Talk today. Welcome back in here to Clay and Buck. We have the longer Darlene Graham clip, which we're going to play for you from the debate last night. Look, I just think this is we got a primary coming up, so this is a very relevant in the news cycle political story right now. You all know this. I just love South Carolina as a state. I really do. I love going, I love visiting. Every time I go, I'm like, maybe I should live here. And a lot of you say, no, please don't. Too many of you Yankees have moved here recently. But still, it's a great state. And, Clay, it's important that we have honest conversations about who should be representing things representing the state of South Carolina in the Senate. Here is the longer Darlene Graham, by the way, on the $50 million. Play it.
Gas prices are record high. Americans are pinched at the grocery store, living paycheck to paycheck, half of America. So what can you do in the U.S. Senate to alleviate that pain?
Well, I know how that feels. There's 50 million people in South Carolina. Half of them live paycheck to paycheck. 60% of them don't have 3 months savings to get by. I've been there before. I've struggled too. I trust President Trump to get the Strait of Hormuz open.
Okay, so she's memorized that at least, except she got the 5 million mixed up with 50 million. I don't know, man. South Carolinians weighing in across the low and the high country. Matthew, what you got for us in South Carolina?
Hey, guys, love the show. A couple quick points. This is only the second worst answer given by a female South Carolinian on live TV. Miss Teen South Carolina still holds that ground.
I was wondering when somebody was going to bring up Miss Teen South Carolina, which we probably should play before the show is out, Buck, just for a good laugh.
She didn't have maps like as such the Iraq, and to be fair, that is
Matthew, what else you got for us? That's a very good callback.
I was going to say it should be disqualifying, but it probably won't be. South Carolinians, they love familiarity on the ballot. Strom Thurmond, he's 103 years old serving, but the gambling market is noticing. She's taken a nosedive so far today.
Thank you for the call. I'll tell a South Carolina story when we come back about law, which surprised me when I was at law school back in the day. And I echo what Buck says. South Carolina's a beautiful place, spectacular state, so many different, unique places. Do you own a business? You know about business insurance, cost of doing business, understanding what's covered and what's not is a huge part of it. I am starting a new business today. I know what this feels like. SuperSure is a company changing everything. If your company has more than 25 employees, whether you're the owner, CFO, HR manager, man, insurance can often be too complicated. SuperSure is a super agency built for business owners, licensed in every state for your business insurance and employee benefits, all with year-round support. You can find out whether SuperSure makes sense for you. It doesn't cost anything at all at supersure.com/Clay. Fine print, facts, get help, get hooked up. Go today. Welcome back in, Clay and Buck. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. We've got several different, a wide variety of comments pouring in. Let's go to some. We got, let's see, David in Charleston who's waiting to talk with us. David in Charleston, fire away.
Hey, good afternoon, fellas. How are y'all doing?
Great.
Great. I couldn't agree more with the previous caller. I think there's a big epidemic of people who vote based on familiarity alone. But my message to my fellow South Carolinians is please take this vote very, very seriously and very, very carefully. You know, a blank slate is not something that we can trust, for a 6-year term. The president is, he's great. We love him, but he's only going to be there for 2 more years. And then, if we're counting on the senator to just follow the cues of the Trump, the president, then I don't really want to gamble on what that seat looks like for 4 years. And just the record is too thin. We don't know where she's going to go on things. And Ralph Norman, just one, I could give you 5 or 6 things, but I'll give you one. In 2020, he was the only member of Congress that was willing to stand with the frontline doctors who have since been 100% validated in everything they said when they were calling out the madness of COVID in early 2020. So Ralph Norman is solid, he's conservative, and we can count on him.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't know that. If that's true, by the way, that's a huge feather in his cap, and we should get team track that down to make sure that we get the details on that.
Should we?
Clay,
We should.
Clay,
by the way,
he had me at standing with the frontline doctors during COVID.
Team, because we've talked about this so much, and the election is going to be on Tuesday, and I think it's going to turn into a big story now. We should invite Ralph Norman and we should invite Darlene Graham on this program to tell you why they are the right choice. And we will be fair
and courteous to both of them, as we always at least aspire.
Let me tell you this, Buck. South Carolina, one of the callers, and I think you were mentioning, when I was in law school, we did what's called on-campus interviews. And a lot of people, as you said, like South Carolina. They were impressed with Columbia. They like Charleston. Greenville is an amazing town in the mountains of South Carolina. Wide variety of, you can be basically in the Smoky Mountains or you can be in the beach. We were told that you could not get hired. Now, it may have changed in the last 20 years. You could not get hired by a South Carolina law firm unless your family had lasting connections to the state of South Carolina. As Vanderbilt lawyers, right? Vanderbilt's a pretty good school in the Southeast. Atlanta wants everybody. Nashville wants everybody. Get a lot of people who can go out to L.A. or New York, Chicago. You can go all over the country. The best law school, I would argue, in the Southeast is Vanderbilt. Duke could maybe throw some punches there. I don't think they are. But they wouldn't hire Vanderbilt attorneys unless your family had longtime South Carolina connections. So there is every state has its own vibe and a little bit different dynamic. Now, I know a lot of people have moved into South Carolina and the population has exploded over the last 20 years. But there's still that old school South Carolina vibe where they do, some parts of South Carolina, I think, see almost a Senate seat as a family heirloom, which you and I don't agree with, but I do think there's sort of that old gerontocracy that kind of has this idea of this is the way we do things here. Just tossing it out there, there's an element of that. I think everybody listening in South Carolina who's been there very long, they're quietly nodding along and saying, you know what, there's some truth to that, Clay. And I will just say it stunned me, even in the early 2000s, that you couldn't get a job in Charleston unless your family had longtime connections as a lawyer to a South Carolina or Charleston-based law firm.
I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of stunned. They were like, it's really not worth your time, Clay. You're a Nashville guy. Yeah, born and raised in the South. Yeah, but you don't have connections to South Carolina. I wouldn't rank the South Carolina firms high on your list, whereas we had some South Carolina kids. They got jobs pretty quick. So there is a dynamic there that I think is a bit unique, maybe that isn't the same in many other different places.
Who's next up on the calls there? Do we have – we have
a bunch of calls rolling through right now that are not yet typed up. So do you want to take us to break? We'll close with calls from South Carolina here. South Carolina callers only. This topic's got people fired up.
We also have very, very exciting.
Oh, wait, yes, we got a great guest
exciting
coming.
thing to talk about with everybody, which is our friend Britney Hugoboom, who is the editor-in-chief and founder of Evie Magazine, EVIE, which is, I want her to describe it because she'll do a better job, but think of it like it's got all of the aesthetic of a Vogue or a Cosmo or something, but for like women who actually want to get married and have babies and believe in like traditional aesthetics and beauty. And, you know, there's not a lot of, 300-pound trans women on the cover kind of a thing. I guess that's a way you could describe this.
Yes.
But she's going to come on and we got a whole bunch of things to talk to her about. And we're going to keep her for the Clay and Buck hangout, which is going to go on after the show is over. Going to continue this on YouTube. So we love all of you who are listening on all of our stations and listening on Sirius. But if you can, at 3 Eastern here when we finish up, please do join us on the YouTube post-show stream. It will be live. If you send us a really cool question or something clever or funny, we can even tell Britney in real time. So that's a fun feature of the live stream. But you got to go to youtube.com, Clay and Buck, and check that out. And we'll have Britney Hugoboom. But we talk a lot, Clay, about movies in the culture. A women's fashion magazine that appeals to everybody, but because it doesn't try to exclude conservatives openly, by being like, here's how like being a trans woman and like we need tampons in the men's rooms and all that craziness you see. By just being a women's magazine for women, they really have created a tremendous following, and they're doing great stuff. And for all the ladies, you guys have got. I've met Britney and her husband; they're really impressive. You've got to stick around, ladies, and join us for that live stream on YouTube. You'll enjoy it. All right, severe weather is the great equalizer when it comes to roofing. Bad winds, a hailstorm, you name it. Any of those can cause problems for an aging roof. Get ahead of it with Erie Home. Company operating for 50 years with national reliability and hometown connections. They're trustworthy, and they are the best at what they do. Erie Home will inspect your roof with a free 25-point inspection that they've developed. And these guys are like the big established players in this business. They are the best in this business. Erie, spelled E-R-I-E. They have 130 offices and shops nationwide in most of the 50 states. So like I said, this is not some new company that's trying to win you over. This is a company that has been doing it at the highest level when it comes to roofing all over the nation. And right now, you can save up to 50% or a $1,200 maximum discount on a new roof. So schedule your free inspection at eriehome.com/buck today and get up to $1,200 in this discount. eriehome.com/buck. That's eriehome.com/buck. This discount is maximized at $1,200. Valid on new roofing installation only. Minimum purchase required. Restrictions apply. See rep for warranty or promotional details. Welcome back in here to Clay and Buck. So we are now joined by our friend Britney Hugoboom. This is really cool, guys. Britney is a 34-year-old wife and mom who built the anti-cosmopolitan for millennial and Gen Z women, Evie Magazine. Vanity Fair has dubbed her the new Camille Paglia, while Evie has gone viral for everything from the milkmaid dress issue to its provocative sex issue, which was aimed at conservative women and their views on sex. Britney has quickly emerged as one of the most influential new voices in women's media And Brittany, I must say the magazine looks fantastic. So I love one of our complaints about conservatives trying to get, or just traditional Americans and traditional point of view trying to get involved in the culture, is that sometimes they're really well intentioned, but it looks amateurish or dorky. Evie, what I love about it is that the aesthetic remains beautiful and kind of aspirational, while still being geared toward, well, the people listening to this right now, for example, would be very comfortable with the conversations and the positions and everything else. Unlike Cosmo, which is like, how to have a throuple and how to change your gender 7 times.
No, thank you guys so much. I'm so honored to be here. It means a lot, and I'm glad you like the magazine. We're very into aesthetics, and I'm glad that it shows.
Where did the idea come from? So you want to compete in culture. I've done this in the world of sports. I'm wondering if there was a moment that was clarifying, a moment that was sort of the epiphany for you. How did this come about? What drove you to start the magazine?
Yeah, so I was actually a huge magazine reader in my teenage years. I loved magazines. I read every magazine in the store. And in the 2010s, everything got so polarizing that they completely alienated half the country. It's like Melania never got a cover, which I've definitely offered. She's stunning. But they gave, Kamala Harris in Converse, they stuck her on the cover, Dr. Jill Biden. And it's like, why are we leaving out half the women in the country who maybe aren't even that political, but they love, magazines and beauty and romance and femininity. And so we started Evie, and it's taken off internationally. It's been really cool. So while other legacy media is dying, we've been able to hopefully soon expand internationally. But congratulations, by the way. I just saw that you had your new sports venture. I know nothing about sports, but all my siblings work in sports, so I can get you tickets to a Saints game.
That would be awesome. It's fun in New Orleans to go to Saints games for sure.
Awesome.
Question for you. I see some of the different titles, and I'm just going to read a couple of them for people out there who might not be familiar with what this is. 94% of women haven't gone back for their frozen eggs. The era of pretending women didn't want to be skinny is over. How to seduce a man without resorting to sex. These are very interesting topics that cut through the noise, which is often very important. What do you hope that people are going to take when they come to your site, when they check out your magazine? What is your aspirational goal for them?
Yeah, I hope they have a lot of fun. Our friend recently bought the magazine, and she said it felt very nostalgic to her. It's kind of more of a coffee table book. It's a very thick magazine. And yeah, we talk about a lot of issues that other magazines maybe agree with, but won't necessarily cover. When we had started Cosmo UK, put an obese woman on a magazine cover and said, "This is healthy," around 2020. And it's like, nobody really wants to be obese. So we would just say things like that. And editors at other magazines would DM me and be like, "I love your pieces, but I can't talk about this." We even did a piece on Ariana Grande's how scary skinny she's become. And I had editors at big publications be like, "We wish we could talk about this at our publication, but we can't. And I'm so glad you're bringing attention to it." So we just kind of, stuck with our guns and go for it. And everything's been great. And we've had a lot of loyal readers for years because of it.
I just want to tell all the guys, because we have a lot of men listening right now, and you might be like, "Well, let me tell you something. Get the missus a subscription to Evie Magazine, sign up for it, get on the distro list, and you'll be the new cool guy around your house." Because this is not something, Clay, we've talked. Why can't we have a traditional Americana movie studio? Why can't we have a major publishing house that isn't run by total communists, or all these different questions that conservatives talked about for a long time? Magazines are among them. I would argue that the magazine space, Clay, is up there. You know what, Brittany, you can speak to this. Traditionally, would you say, is the magazine space as liberal as, say, Broadway, Madison Avenue advertising executives? I mean, it has been dominated by the left and by progressives.
Yeah, I would say publishing even more so than Hollywood, probably. It's definitely not like no one else has done it for a reason. But it's funny because a lot of women have shown other women at like Hearst and Condé Nast and been like, "Hey, why are we not doing a magazine like this? It's really good." So that's been really cool to see.
Brittany, I'm curious what your take would be on Sydney Sweeney. She certainly has leaned back into, I would say, the era that a lot of people grew up in, which is just a good-looking woman who's very comfortable being good-looking, whether it's with American Eagle, whether it's with her new lingerie line. She also is a registered Republican in Florida. She hasn't apologized for any of it. How do you think your audience responds to Sydney? What do you think of her? I'm sure she wouldn't probably be a bad cover model at some point in time. Take us into what she represents in your mind.
Oh man, I know our readers are conflicted with Sydney Sweeney. I think she's gorgeous, and I love beautiful women. I'm obsessed with beauty, clearly. And I was talking about this actually today on Pod Force One about Sydney Sweeney and Sophie Cunningham and how brands should lean into more controversial figures because they do sell. American Eagle, I tried to buy the jeans because of Sydney Sweeney's ad, and they were sold out. Same with Adidas, with Sophie Cunningham's collab. And I think that she saw a space where she loves looking beautiful, but she also loves men. And she very clearly dresses like an old school Hollywood glamour star, which at the time, everything was more baggy and androgynous. And you just didn't really see super feminine cuts until the last few years. And I think she really leaned into that very well. And I think she's great. I love her.
One of our biggest clips recently was, I'm sure you know, the political commentator Ann Coulter. You're familiar with her work, Brittany. Yeah. She was on with us, and on the point about fashion, I will say she totally backed me up on this. I have been trying to tell, and it's not that I am fashionable. I'm an observer. You know, you don't have to be a great chef to be a good restaurant critic. And I am an observer of fashion trends among women. The very baggy, formless jeans for women trend, I would argue, is the ugliest aesthetically female fashion trend since probably the gaucho pants. I don't know if people remember that, but there was a period of the gaucho pants in the early 2000s. Can you save women from this? Because the young women are, I'm telling you, every 20-year-old girl I see walking around, well, Miami, they're in bikinis, but if I see them in New York, they're wearing these jeans, they're going to hate these photos in 5 years.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I was a gaucho pant wearer. I'm so sorry, in the early 2000s. But
oh my gosh.
I'm a traitor. But no, I was wearing mom jeans actually the other day, and my husband's like, why are you wearing these? These are so ugly. And it is like the pants that you throw on when you don't want to be bothered by anybody because no one comes up to you. So obviously that's a sign that they're not that attractive at all. But I think when women embrace their femininity and wear dresses, people are a lot nicer too. And I just think it's much prettier.
Brittany is going to stick with
this.
us.
Go ahead.
You can hear the music. I'm going to try to do what I did last time and ask a super provocative question that makes everyone come to the YouTube page because they just must hear what the answer is. So for Brittany, how do you seduce a man without sex? That is one of the stories that Evie had. What would you say to the young single women out there that are trying to find Mr. Right? And as a secondary part of this question, AOC has frozen her eggs. You have a frozen egg story in Evie. What was your take on it? How do you think it impacts the culture? And what should the political ramifications be? All of those, I must say, are one hell of a tease, and you will get the answers in 6 seconds on our YouTube page for Clay and Buck.
So here we go. We're almost there.
Did it work?
Right.
Okay, it worked.
There we go.
Brittany, you heard those questions. I'll reinforce.
Welcome to the
for
Thunderdome.
You. Yes, welcome back in. Thank you to everybody who has continued the show and is hanging out with us right now. So I'll start with that question. There is a tremendous, I would say, unsated demand. Every time we talk about single women not being able to find men, they all say they can't find the right guy. There are all these issues. What would your advice be for a young woman to be able to find the right guy based on your experience and what your magazine would tell them?
My magazine, our slogan is Seek Truth, Find Beauty. And so I don't know if I can hear you guys. It's like I can hear an ad. Is that normal?
The ads continue to run. So gotcha. Buck and I will talk here. Producer Allie will figure out if she can get it down. I knew, Buck, I knew
the tech. I know.
I knew that it was going too smoothly. And Brittany, you can tell us when the ads are gone. We do have to pay the bills here.
Well, Clay, can I throw some other things out there? One thing that was and Brittany, we'll come back to you on this as well. One of the other articles I wanted to talk about, because I just love this one, was I can't wait to lose my last name.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be such an ignition point. Because or some people will be triggered by this. There was this clip recently of a woman who was at her wedding ceremony, and the officiant was saying, I now pronounce you man and wife, and it was like John Smith and Jane Smith. And she looks at him and she's like, no, it's Galakowitz, and she like corrected the guy. And the comments overwhelmingly on this were, well, this is going to be, this is not a marriage that's looking for a happy
run
future
as fast
here.
as you can in the opposite direction.
I think now we're beyond. Okay, Brittany, why don't we we can get to the last name question in a moment. I just wanted to give a second there for the commercials to clear, but
okay,
there we
she's
go.
with
They're
us
cleared.
now. All right, Brittany, I'm going to come back to you because I teased as we went to break, and I believe you can hear us now.
Yes.
Your magazine has been very focused on trying to help young men and young women get together. What advice would you give a young woman out there that is seeking in some way to find her life partner? And as a part of that, also, AOC obviously has yet to find her life partner and has gone viral recently for freezing her eggs. How would you assess that larger landscape of the duo there?
Awesome. Yeah, when it comes to finding someone, our slogan with Evie is Seek Truth, Find Beauty. So I try to be as honest as possible, which people don't necessarily like, but whenever they take my advice, good things happen. And I would say you date the level that you become. I think a lot of people have this illusion of options where the average woman gets 800 swipes a month on a dating app. So you assume you have 800 suitors, and that's not true. Just because a guy finds you attractive doesn't mean, it's a good fit. So I say level up like you're in a video game. If you want the best guy possible, you have to become the best girl possible in order to get him. So I always just say level up, become as virtuous as possible, get attractive, dress well. If you have extra weight, maybe lose the weight, things like that, where you put yourself in a higher tier and you can attract better quality men.
So Brittany, if you ever need somebody to weigh in from the front lines of the trench warfare of New York City dating, like with that experience, Clay got married. Clay did it the old American dream way. He met his sweetheart, grad school, 3 kids. Whatever. I didn't get married till I was 40. So I was in New York City and D.C., kind of back and forth between the two, dealing with this. And I will tell you, this might get me in a bit of trouble, Clay, but you know what? I'm just going to say it. And Brittany, you can react as you see fit to this. I never met a woman who had a good attitude and a good figure who had a lack of dating options. Yeah, never once. Never once in my life was. Now, the corollary to that is there can be a problem with too many options and not making a decision, but I have yet to meet a woman who had a good attitude and a good figure who didn't have tons of dating options.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's a pretty straightforward formula.
Especially in a city like New York City. Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
She co-signs,
yeah,
Clay.
she
I love it.
co-signs
Look
on
at
it.
this.
All right. I want to go to what Buck just kind of hit on there a little bit, which is social media impact. I got married, Buck said, I was 25 years old. So before social media took off, before the dating apps existed, the social media world can convince people constantly that they are not doing well, right? Because you see somebody else at their absolute best, the best filtered photo of them, the best moment of their vacation, the best moment of their parenting. You don't see necessarily all of the challenges associated with that. How is that impacting young people, young women in particular, in your mind? And what would you say? I'm sure social media has been impactful in terms of growing your audience, but what would you say to people out there who are grappling with those challenges?
I would say be a creator, not a consumer. I think that it's extremely toxic for women to scroll on Instagram. I think there's just a lot that eventually will get in your head, especially with the toxic mommy groups on Facebook or whatever. It's not worth it. I like log in the Instagram, I'll see like 3 pretty friends photos and put some fire emojis and log off, and that's like basically it. But I think it's just healthier. So when I tweet random things, and people always get annoyed about it, but it's just like we'll have a conversation in real life and then tweet about it and then turn off my phone, go to Pilates, and then, there's like some storm about it, but I just think it's healthier. Otherwise, you'll doom scroll,
Brittany, I think that for one thing, it's a constant where you have a lot of women who are seeing these things that, and it's really true of anybody, because the algorithm, right, sees what you're clicking on, and then it feeds more of this back to you. And so if you're interested in people who are on perfect looking vacations in St. Bart's or traveling to Monaco or doing some fancy, whatever it may be, Lake Como, these destinations, you just get fed that all the time. And I think people start to think that other people, this is their life. And the truth is, I know people who basically travel for a living, whether they're travel writers or whatever. It's actually kind of a lonely and tough existence after a while. It's not even what people think it would be to do all of this. And so I do think the social media component can be really challenging. But I'm something that came up years ago. A friend of mine, Inez Felcher-Stetman, like you, she's married, she has a kid. You have 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
You have 2 now or 3?
2.
Two. That's right. You have 2 kids. She just wrote an article, Clay, I don't know if you know about this. This is like 10 years ago. She wrote an article just telling other women, and she had a mostly conservative audience, hey, maintaining your appearance for your husband is a healthy and good thing to do for your marriage. And people were like sending her death threats. People went crazy on her. And I just feel like the feminist left is feeding women poison that ruins their marriages, ruins their self-confidence, and is like destined for nothing but disaster. Like things like that, looking good for, it doesn't mean look perfect, but maintaining your appearance for your husband is considered bad among feminists.
Oh, trust me, I know. This is what we get the most backlash for. We had an article go viral on Substack from a friend who said, I'm a MILF and I'm tired of being mom shamed for it. And she was talking about how I think she got had a hair appointment or a boob job or something. And she was saying that when she got there, the guy was asking, why would you do that? You're not divorced. And why is it when she gets divorced, she can look hot, but when she's with someone who loves her and cares about her, she's like expected to be like a tired, lazy mom. So yeah, we've definitely gotten a lot of that. Even with our sex issue with Evie, we had women and you can't make this up. Like it feels like a meme with like straight pink hair. In their bio, they say they have 3 cats, and they were really angry about the issue and saying it was trad wife propaganda because there was no anal in it.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. I was like, I can't even make this up. It's like Salon or Slate or alt one of those, and it's just like, you can Google it. It's crazy.
I've got to be careful when I Google it, but yeah, let's check this out.
Yeah,
it's like a jump scare. Yeah. That was like the weirdest reaction. Was like kind of, older liberal women who were like really angry that there was no anal. And then you Google it and you see their husband or lack thereof, and you're just like, that's a different magazine,
All right. Well, here's a question since you went there. For back in the day when I was young, we used to have to work pretty significantly to see a naked female body on like a Playboy magazine, which was one of the most iconic magazines out there at all. And what was interesting to me about Playboy was, at least you could argue, even though people would say it kind of as a joke, oh, I read Playboy for the articles, there was a high-low element to it. Then pornography happens, it's everywhere. How do you think, in your experience and also in the audience that you have out there, has pornography impacted male-female relationships given its vast prevalence now compared to 20, 30, or even 40 years ago?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because people always say I read Playboy for the articles, and I actually found out that a couple of my favorite writers used to be at Playboy. So I think maybe they were actually serious about that, which is ironic. But yeah, the whole porn conversation, I mean, I think porn is like cringe, but like I think it's an overblown conversation as well. I said once, like, everything is porn is the new everything is racist. Like we launched a sundress and people were like, it's basically porn. And you could see like a little bit of cleavage. And it's like, okay, so is a live action Cinderella porn? Is like Pride and Prejudice porn? Pirates of the Caribbean, Keira Knightley? Like the whole thing is just so bizarre. So yeah, I think porn is like cringe and I've never watched it. I interviewed Mia Khalifa and I had never seen her work. And I think it showed, but yeah.
I've seen her
yeah,
work.
but there's definitely Clay to the point she's making. I mean, I would say there is a streak on the right. You know, there are a lot of things that the left will say about the right that I'm just like, you're just making this up, or like we hate women, for example. I mean, I would argue that we love women and are willing to defend women and treat women better than the left does, and certainly as on a societal level, the way that people on the right view women in society, I think, is in the long run healthier, better for families, better for women, better for everybody. But there is a puritanical streak that we have on the right sometimes with some things. There is a little bit of that. And so how you thread that needle with Evie Magazine, I mean, I'm curious. It must be, for one thing, I know you're appealing to Gen Z women, which is what has happened to Gen Z women. Now, on the one hand, I'll see like a spread from a magazine. Was this the Wall Street Journal, Clay, where they did it? Was like the age of Trump. And there's all these very attractive young, particularly young women, 20-something, maybe early 30s women. And this is representative of this era of Trump among Gen Z women. But on the other hand, you see the data among Gen Z women, and they've just completely lost their minds politically. So how do you make sense of that for us? Explain it all, Brittany.
Well, Gen Z thinks woke is for ugly people. We did an article on that at Evie, and a lot of young Gen Z girls and older Gen Alpha girls like want to get married young. They want to look beautiful. They're embracing their femininity. So I think they saw a lot of what the millennials did and don't want to do that. And most of our audience are women in their 20s who are very pretty, very sweet, romantic girls. Maybe they listen to Lana Del Rey or Olivia Dean. And yeah, I just think there's an ulterior audience for that, and they've gravitated towards Evie. But maybe there's other stuff going on. I don't know.
Brittany, we've got an interview in theory coming up with Wall Street Journal, and one of the writers that's working on that, I believe, to Buck's point, wrote an article about your brand, and we were just kind of asking what was the party like, and she said it's the largest collection of pretty girls that I've been to a party where they were all attending. She said the girls were just gorgeous. Do girls that are fans of Evie, do they feel like they have to hide their politics when they are interacting with men? Because men, Buck lived through this in New York, will sometimes say whatever they think they need to say to get women's attention. Do women feel the same early in relationships with men? How do you assess that?
Yeah, I feel like they do. And that's one thing I really loved about my husband is that when I first met him, I was eating shrimp and he comes up to me and says that they're the bottom feeders of the ocean. And I was like, great, this guy thinks I'm nasty. But like, he didn't just like, other guys before him would pretend that they liked whatever I liked, or they liked video games or whatever. They kept trying to pretend they had the same interests, and to like have someone who like didn't have that and was willing to just like say it how it is, I think is like very attractive. And I think it's why our audience is pretty split, like 33, Republican, Democrat, independent women. And they're always very pretty. They're always usually like slimmer. And a lot of even the liberal feminist girls are like, I prefer a masculine conservative man because at least they don't like BS me like a male feminist.
Well, this is like the joke. I was going to ask you about this, Brittany, which is that the thing that a lot of women who want to date male feminists find out is that they don't have a boyfriend, they have a girlfriend. It's very hard. I see this among extremely, especially living in New York and being in the dating scene for a long time, that if you find a guy who says he's a male feminist, you're either dealing with a guy who's just a manipulator and lying to try to, get to the promised land, if you will, or if you have a guy who actually thinks that way, you're dealing with somebody who tends to be, trying to think of the right way to say this, a giant wimp and probably has low T, and that doesn't appeal even to women who have left-wing political beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, a male feminist, I always say, is just the guy who wants to go to the Free the Nipple naked march and hold the sign just to be around naked women, because otherwise he's not. But Yeah, it is. It's very dishonest. I think women can kind of see through it, all types of women. And, even look at the situation with AOC. I don't know who her fiance was, but she was with him for a while. And I feel like when you like a guy, you just want to have babies with him. So the whole egg freezing thing, I was like, this guy must not, like, be that type of guy. If she's now freezing eggs, and then I think they broke up like a week ago.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
which is not
did
surprising.
indeed.
What
Can I ask you something? Sorry, go ahead, Clay.
No, I was going to say I like Buck's direction there. I have two teenage boys, one who's about to be 12, so he's very close. Looks maxing is a big deal now in the young male community. I think it's connected to the fact that social media overall is a very image-conscious world. Certainly women have been taken over by obsessing about what they look like. What do your young women think about men who are obsessed with their looks? What's your take on the looks maxing phenomenon in general?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because my husband's youngest brother, is really into looks maxing. He's in his early 20s, and he's the one that told us about it. I think, women have always tried to look good. With the men, when men care more about their attractiveness than women, it kind of feels off. But at the same time, like, girls want like an effortlessly sexy, attractive guy, just like guys want a girl who's, low maintenance, and just like naturally beautiful when she wakes up. So I think they both kind of like want the same thing. And I think, the looks maxing thing is maybe like a more positive thing for now when it comes to men, because it's like you do get privileges as a guy. If you're more attractive, you get way more opportunities. I mean, I guess with people in general, but it's more positive than other things, I think. It's just gone a little unhinged.
So you may have seen, and it caused quite a stir, former member of Congress Nancy Mace unveiled some new ink as she showed her arms. Did you see this? Do you know what I'm talking about? She's got a lot of tattoos on her arms now. Yeah. Now, ladies getting tattoos. Where do Gen Z women come down on that one? Where does this sort of Evie editorial? Because I got to tell you, I'm a guy. I don't have any tattoos. I am generally opposed to tattoos. But I live in Miami, where there are all these women who are in their 20s and 30s in particular, and they have like little tattoo on the wrist and little tattoo behind the ear, and these little you can't even tell what they are. Is the tattoo era coming to a close? Are they in or are they out, fashion lady?
Well, maybe after this they'll be out. I don't know. But yeah, the girls always do the little cute like butterfly or whatever. We're not, like, I don't have any tattoos. I don't think most of our readers do. We do have one reader who modeled for us who does have a tattoo, but I don't see it often with our readers, but I see it often when I travel across the U.S. I'm like, wow, I forgot people have so many tattoos.
What do you think young men overwhelmingly voted conservative in 2024? A lot of young women, at least, voted very liberal. In fact, for young people, 18 to, let's say, 28 or 30, let's be broad, 18 to 30, the gap between how men voted and women voted is, I think it was way more substantial in that gender age group than in any other gender age group. Will men become more liberal in your mind as they age, or will women become more conservative? How do you see this disconnect playing out? Or will the genders just continue to stay apart and nobody's going to have any babies?
I think Gen Z is they just want honesty, and they really hate the polarization. A lot of them just want people to be honest to them. They feel like they've been lied to a lot. And I think during the COVID era, a lot of people were pushed to the right. I know most of my girlfriends were liberal, and a lot of them switched over because they were really ticked off about the vaccine and forcing that. They were very crunchy Los Angeles girls. So I think Gen Z just wants honesty and transparency, and I think I think they're just tired of the polarization. I think that's why you see like Froyo having a comeback, and a lot of like 2016 is like a year that they keep owing to, and I think it's because it was a time before everything became so polarizing. Even with Evie, like the media put our sundress on the cover of the Washington Post and was like, is the sundress political now? And people are like, Pilates is so Evie coded. And it's like, at what point does it just stop? Like, when are we gonna like end? I feel like they're just doing such a bad disservice, just being like everything.
If being healthy and attractive and feminine is right coded now, or increasingly right coded, which it seems like that is the vibe. What does Cosmo, Vogue, what do they stand for? Like, I'm actually curious. Like, well, what are they doing?
I don't know. It's so sad because there were always beautiful liberal women in LA and New York, like a lot of the big models and stuff, and a lot of them are closet, not on that side, which I can't say. But yeah, most of the supermodels aren't on that side because they're, you know, Brazilian or from Russia or from places that are kind of more traditional and where, you know, looking attractive and loving men isn't offensive. It seems to be more polarizing, surprisingly, here.
I don't know how much you followed this case, and the answer may not be at all. We haven't talked about it on the program because I don't think neither Buck nor I have a strong opinion, but I have my quad box set up, and it is being covered amazingly, voluminously. This Lindsay Clancy trial, the mother who killed her 3 kids. An awful story, jumped out of the house. I don't know if you've been following it, but it seems as if this murder trial has captured the attention of a large number of women. I don't think men are talking about it very much at all. Have you and your friend group been talking about it? Have you been aware of the amount of attention it has gotten? Why is it so captivated, in your opinion, a strong segment of the female audience?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, definitely the most talked about thing for the last week for the female audience in general, with our audience and with women I know. A lot of women love true crime, and so that's brought a lot of that to the forefront. But, you know, as a mom, I'm picturing this lady, you know, strangling her toddler while the sibling is watching and crying for their mom, and I just can't wrap my head around it. I think it's so mortifying and evil and demented, and the fact that, you know, I've seen TikToks where women are like, I stand with Lindsay, and it's one thing where some think, you know, the husband secretly did it and he secretly had a mistress and it was all like a ploy. I don't know, but to think that like Lindsay actually did it, I know she has, you know, postpartum depression's different. Now there's like a whole conversation on X about postpartum depression. It's real. Everyone knows your hormones are super out of whack. I was afraid dogs were going to attack my kids, which I used to love dogs. So it was like a weird psychological thing that does happen to you for a certain amount of time. But I just think about the kids more than Lindsay, and I'm a lot more justice oriented. And I think that if I did kill my kids, like I would want to die too. I don't know. I just think the whole thing is like messed up.
Yeah, to me, it should be a death penalty case. And I know that it has been a big debate online. The postpartum discussion to me is, I understand people wanting to talk about that, although I don't think mental illness in this country, I mean, there are tens of millions of people who have some, whether it's an anxiety disorder or OCD or their depression or bipolarity or any of these things. And no one would ever say, well, you had anxiety and so you murdered, never mind murdering your own 3 children, but you murdered 3 people, so you are somehow not culpable, or you're not, you know, and people say, what about criminal insanity defense? That's as Clay will speak to as a lawyer, very hard usually to plead insanity and usually does not work. And I would argue that those people are all essentially forfeiting their right to exist in society the moment that they're telling you that they murdered people because they're so crazy. But what I'm curious if you can give me some insight. You mentioned this. The women who are on the, put aside whether they have some cockamamie theory that, you know, the true crime online crowd unfortunately does this a lot these days. Put that aside for a second. Why would any mom have sympathy for this mom? I don't understand. I truly don't understand that.
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest black pill is, like I said, I know postpartum depression is real, anxiety is real. Like I said, the dog thing was such a bizarre thing that I had that I remember, but it's really sickening to me, you know, seeing the moms with the baby and they're like, same Lindsay, this could have been me, this could have been us. And a lot of those women that I've seen that are saying Lindsay could have been me were also women who hated on Evie's dress, which is a very interesting correlation because most of the women that I follow are on my side. Like I said, it's more justice oriented. But yeah, the whole thing is sad. You know, I would put my kids before myself any day and my husband. So it's just not relatable, I guess, in any way.
How do people find your magazine? So one of the biggest challenges, I talk to Buck about this all the time, having been involved in media myself with founding companies, not to mention what we do, trying to get people's attention on our shows and making them aware that we exist. How do you get people aware of your magazine? And truth be told, is getting attacked actually the best thing that can happen for your business when the Washington Post gets upset about sundresses or Pilates or whatever it might be? I always say attacks help more people become aware of the fact that I'm sane. I'm curious if you have found the same thing to be true.
Yeah, you know, with our first sundress launch, we had a lot of attacks for that. It went viral and sold out, I think, in 24 hours. And then the next dress, at first, everyone was saying they liked it, and we were a little sad. We're like, oh no, is nobody gonna hate on it? And then obviously the normal haters that came out, the ones who are also defending Lindsay Clancy right now, came out and started bashing it. And I think it's great because it drives virality. People are still talking about these dresses years later. We didn't have any connections whatsoever when we started Evie Magazine. I had never been to DC and had zero connections. So it was like, how are we going to have people find out about us, learn how to do, TikTok, X, and the platforms where you didn't need to spend a ton of money like you did on Meta, on Facebook ads that some bigger companies could have done. But I love it. People will buy our sex issue, like I said, and write a whole theory about it. People will just, write about us all over the world and hate on it. And it's great because it's a ton of free press. And yeah, I mean, it's awesome. If nobody cared about us, then like, what's the point,
Right. Well, what's the, now just to be clear, there's the online version, like anyone can pull that up, but you have people can subscribe to the physical print, old school glossy magazine version, right? So they just go to eviemagazine.com to do that. I'm thinking some of the guys listening might do this for their wives, or certainly some of the young ladies listening right now themselves may just want to go and get themselves. I just got my wife a physical copy of Architectural Digest, Clay, because I knew that she would like it. And let me tell you, it was a big hit. I was kind of a hero for a day. So Evie Magazine, I think, would be even better. Is that right, though? They go to eviemagazine.com and they subscribe? EVIE?
EVIEmagazine.com/subscribe, and you can subscribe to it digitally. If you want to get the print, it's evieprint.com, and you can get the magazine. They're big, giant, like coffee table-like magazines. They're beautiful. We also sell them here in New York City at Casa Magazines and Iconic Magazines.
How did you end up doing this? What is your background? That's probably something we should have asked at the beginning of this, but I'm sitting around. Most people don't think to themselves, hey, I want to start a magazine. That's a unique concept, a unique idea. I know you said you really liked reading magazines when you were young, but what propelled you into this position? What was your background? What do you think drove you to this position where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge magazine reader, like I said, and I was really disheartened with the late 2010s, how polarizing everything had become. And I wanted to do something different. And I really didn't have much experience. I had modeled from like 16 to 24 or 25. Now I'm 34. But I was a big gamer growing up. I competed in martial arts. My dad made sure we were all black belts and medal at Junior Olympics. So I really hate losing. And I think that's been very helpful in success, and obviously.
Oh no, I know we've got a lot of questions. You just opened
I'm going to jump in
trophy.
because Buck's wife says that him playing video games is the least sexy thing he can do. So there is this idea out there in gamer universe that pretty girls like you just love when guys play video games. So you are in some way, was it Olivia Munn who basically fulfilled that fantasy? Like she would dress up like Princess Leia and like play video games. I think I'm correct in that. What video games did you play? What would you say to men out there that say, hey, my girlfriend or my wife doesn't necessarily love when I kick back and play video games?
Oh, gosh, this is such a long, complicated question because I competed with Nintendo every year at E3. I was a big gamer. I'm very good at it. I probably should have been Twitch famous, but I didn't. I'm not technologically challenged, so I didn't want to set up the the game machine. But I was a huge gamer. My husband actually wasn't a gamer, and my brother bought him a PS4 and Skyrim for our wedding gift. And he was blown away by the music, the talent, like all the best creatives. I love film. I love creatives. They all moved to video games. So the worlds are absolutely beautiful. And Evie actually did a piece in defense of the gamer boyfriend, which this is also a take that nobody on the right, I don't think, maybe you guys, but not like other publishers I've seen take. But I'm very pro video games. And I think that women just want to know that like work's getting done. And I think that if a guy wants to play video games, I think it's great. I think it's really cute. And Henry Cavill's like, you know, one of girls' favorite crushes, and he's a big gamer. So I think it's, you know, if you like a guy, you like everything he does.
This is amazing. We got to clip this and put this all over the internet just to help all the guys out there like me who are way too good at FC soccer game.
What games, by the way, did you play?
Call of Duty.
Can we ask, like, what games were a gamer? There's a wide range of gamers. Like, your favorite games would have been what?
So I was really, really good. I still am, I guess, at Super Smash Brothers. That's like my go-to game. Anything Nintendo, I'm amazing at. I'm not amazing at the PS5, but I love watching my husband play. And my favorite games are The Last of Us and The Witcher 3.
The Last of Us is amazing. I've definitely played that one, you know, start to finish. I just started playing Neo 3 recently, by the way. I play when my wife goes. So my wife and I keep slightly different hours. Like she's just an early riser and I'm not. And she likes to go to bed about an hour. So this is the thing. I'm limited to an hour a night. If at best, most nights I don't get to play. But maybe I'll get an hour when the baby's asleep, my wife is asleep, the bills are paid, like everything. I've worked all day. I've gone to the gym. I've done all my things. And I try to tell her, I'm like, look, I think that this is it's just for me. And I read a lot too. So like I'm doing the book reading at other times. But for me, it's a great stress reliever. And I'll tell you, though, other than having you endorse this, by the way, which any of our gamer guys in the audience are going to be like, this is like the greatest day of my life. Elon Musk, she actually listened to me on this one. I was like, honey, Elon Musk isn't just the richest man in the world. He is the most transformative business leader maybe ever, but certainly of his generation. And he will stay up all night sometimes playing video games. And I don't think anyone can say that he's not productive. So between the Elon factor and now the Britney or the Evie factor, Clay, I think gaming is going to be made great again. And I don't think that we should. I agree with you, by the way. People who don't recognize the talent and the musical scores, there's acting that goes in these video games now because of the way they set up these characters and the voiceovers and everything else. They're amazing. Clay is like Buck's a huge nerd, but still, I like it.
No, I think Tifa Lockhart's like my idol in terms of like the epitome of an awesome girl. She's in Final Fantasy VII. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like you can't be against video games and be pro like scrolling your phone or watching reality TV. Like I don't watch reality TV because I think I did like years ago. I had Love Island on and my husband came in and made fun of it. So I just stopped watching it. But I'm like, you can't watch like reality TV and scroll your phone and think that's better for your brain than like actively playing a video game, which helps with memory. It helps with competitiveness. It helps. I mean, it's incredible. You know, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. I know that from like Pokemon, just things that I learned from video games that I never would have learned in school. And I credit.
Oh, by the way, you said martial arts too.
Yes.
What was your style? Was it crane? Was it tiger? But also, what is your favorite martial arts movie? Because I think there's only one answer that I will accept, but people will want to know.
Oh, gosh. I did Taekwondo and Hapkido, so the Korean martial arts, because at the time they were Olympic sports and karate wasn't. Now karate is as well. Favorite martial arts film? I don't know. I don't know if Cinderella Man counts, but I love Cinderella Man and Rocky. I know they're boxing. I loved The Three Ninjas as a kid.
Have you seen Bloodsport?
No.
Because that was the answer I was looking for.
I haven't seen that one.
You and your husband need to watch. It's Stephen Miller in the White House. It's not just his favorite martial arts movie. Clay could back me up on this. He came on our show and said it's his favorite movie of all time, period. Better than any movie.
I would also say Karate Kid. Have you not watched Cobra Kai?
I like Cobra Kai. It was cute. Yeah, I love Karate Kid.
It's cute. Yeah, no, Bloodsport's a different kind of
I mean, Karate Kid, I think, is the best karate movie. Like, in terms of actual, I understand your affinity for Bloodsport. I love also Cobra Kai. My kids love it. It's fantastic.
I remember
And
seeing Karate Kid when I was a kid, and I was like, I could kick Ralph Macchio's ass. This is preposterous.
But his
That crane
girlfriend's
kick
such a
wouldn't
ride
work.
or die. She's so cute. She's actually such a great example of a loyal, great girlfriend.
in episode
Uh-huh.
1, and then she leaves him for a UCLA quarterback in
Yeah.
Karate Kid 2, and he has to find a new girlfriend, Allie.
Same thing with Outer
is-
Banks. It's
Oh, do you
sad.
watch Outer Banks?
No, season 1, everyone was obsessed with Madeline Klein's character, Sarah, because she was a ride or die like that. And then, like, the next season, or like a couple seasons later, she cheats on
she
him,
goes
and
back.
I'm like,
Well,
sad.
the new Outer Banks, I watch every episode. My boys are huge fans. My wife is as well. It drops tomorrow. And in the Travis household, we are going to be sitting down. Season 5, I think it is, of Outer Banks comes out tomorrow. I can't wait.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, you should talk to Clay about having like an Evie sponsor trad wife gala or something in Nashville, because he like runs Nashville, and that would do very well there. Everyone
be
could show up. I'm just saying, like black tie, like very very high end. I mean,
In all
there's,
seriousness, have you ever done a tailgate edition to focus on the outfits that SEC in particular girls wear to tailgates, many of which are sundresses?
No, but like I said, I didn't go to college with a sorority. I went to like a classic liberal arts school, but my siblings work in sports, so like they love all that stuff.
Well, I mean, in all seriousness, girls going to tailgates will pick their outfits based on the quality of the opponent. So you have a top 10 matchup outfit, and then you have an out-of-conference team's going to win by 30 or 40 points outfit.
Wow.
I am telling you, if you did, and I know very little about fashion, but if you did a tailgate fashion, like sexy magazine, it would dominate. And I would be happy to be a part of that because we have a bunch of reporters that cover it. But anyway, if you think about it, I think it would do well. People are going to watch this. And if the overlap there, I bet for your audience is pretty significant.
I think that's a great idea. I've been wanting to do a college edition of the magazine, so that would be fun to have in there.
well, I think you two have some discussion to be had here. Clay, I've actually got a jet because I got to
I'm
take
good,
over
too.
babysitting duties on my little man who's 16 months old, because we've hit the 3:30 mark, and now it's my turn. See, I'm a dad who pitches in, Brittany. But just want to say the magazine is so cool, and all the pretty conservative girls of America love it, and they should all certainly know about it, or more of them should know about it if they don't already. So congrats on all that. Thank you for hanging out with us, and come back on Clay and Buck anytime. It's really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Very cool, fun time. Mostly worked on the tech, Buck. A little bit of a hiccup there, but this was very fun.
Yeah, thank you guys.
See you, Brittany.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.